Chapter 1170. If that was the case, this martial soul was indeed very strong. Wang Feng noticed that Wu Xianghe was holding something in his hand, as if he was holding onto air. This meant that he was indeed holding onto a special sword. Wu Xianghe charged towards Lin Lord Bingmu. The formless sword-shaped air currents around him repelled Lin Lord Bingmu's attack. He was very quick. Every time his palm brought along a streak of sword qi, he could repel many attacks. With the support of his 6 soul rings, his attacks were also very strong. Many of the attacks formed by the aura of absolute ice were extremely difficult for soul masters to break. However, Wu Xianghe relied on the formless blade in his hand to forcefully break some of the weaker icicles with its strong attack power. His plan and goal were very clear, which was to target Wang Feng himself. Hence, he focused on dodging Lin Lord Bingmu's attack. He didn't want to clash head-on. He was like a sword-wielding diner as he moved rapidly under the attacks. Lin Lord Bingmu's attacks were much scarier than the group attacks from the volcano martial soul. If not for Lin Lord Bingmu's control, even the spectators would have been covered by the attacks. Not only were the attacks wide, but they were also very concentrated. It was very frightening. Frost danced in the air and turned into countless weapons in mid-air. Clanging sounds intertwined in the soul dueling arena. Even the spectators could feel the cold aura. Unknowingly, frost started to appear on Wu Xianghe's body. Even if many attacks could be deflected and dodged, the pervasive cold air and frost were too difficult to dodge. The most frightening thing was, this type of frost could even freeze a soul master's soul force barrier. The formless sword qi around Wu Xianghe was also slowly frozen by the frost formed by the power of absolute ice. In the hands of Qilin Lord Bingmu, the extremely powerful power of absolute ice was still far from its limit. How could the power of absolute ice, which could even freeze a slightly weaker heavenly tribulation, be so simple? What kind of ice-type power is this? This thought appeared in many people's minds. As Wu Xianghe got closer and closer to Wang Feng, more and more frost appeared on his body. Unknowingly, even the formless heavenly void sword in his hand was slowly covered by this frost. On the high platform, Dinshin frowned even more. It was like walking on thin ice. That soul beast didn't even move. It was only relying on its ultimate attribute to force Wu Xianghe to this extent. He was too strong. This was far beyond their understanding of soul beasts. Even the ice-type soul beasts in the extreme north couldn't compare to this, could they? Furthermore, they might not even be stronger than this soul beast. It only had 6,000 years of cultivation. The V-shaped ice crown on Qilin Lord Bingmu's head gave off a naturally imposing aura that made one feel as though they wouldn't dare offend it. This soul beast is definitely very ancient, Dinshin said in a low voice. The way he attacks doesn't seem like a 6,000-year soul beast at all. It's really strange, and this soul beast is very intelligent. He had used the purest and most direct method to deal with teacher Xiang He. Xiang He had no shortcuts to take, other than forcing himself to come before him. However, if he were to rush in front of them like this, the frost on Xiang He's body would greatly hinder his movements. His strength would be greatly reduced, and even the shadowless effect of the heavenly void sword would be lost. If he doesn't change, Xiang He will be defeated by the time he reaches Qilin Lord Bingmu. He will be thoroughly defeated. Qilin Lord Bingmu was very strong, and he was extremely calm. He didn't seem to have any command from Wang Feng. With their combat experience, they were able to completely suppress their enemies. Jake was like this, and now, the stronger Wu Xianghe was also like this. Wang Feng was deep in thought. Qilin Lord Bingmu was very strong. Other than his absolute ice power, his countless years of experience was also one of the most important reasons. This was equivalent to the rebirth of an expert. To Qilin Lord Bingmu, he could control his strength better than Long Xie, and he was more familiar with the stone dragon's strength. Because he was born from an egg, this was Qilin Lord Bingmu's strength. In addition, Qilin Lord Bingmu's body was very strong. Naturally, Qilin Lord Bingmu could use his absolute ice power as he wished. Just by standing there, he was already a huge hindrance to his opponent. After a lot of effort, Wu Xianghe broke through all the obstacles and arrived 30 meters away from Qilin Lord Bingmu. To a Soul Emperor, this distance could be covered in the blink of an eye. However, Wu Xianghe stopped. He was like a snowman. His entire body was covered in frost. The hot air coming out of his mouth condensed into a thick white fog. Being covered by the frost formed by the power of absolute ice caused the circulation of soul power in his body to be somewhat frozen. The joints of his body also became incomparably stiff. Furthermore, the frost on his body was increasing rapidly. Wu Xianghe stared ahead. Qilin Lord Bingmu's body was floating in the air. The wings on his back covered Wang Feng's figure, making it difficult for him to see him. Strong. Wu Xianghe spat out a word. He didn't understand how a 6,000-year soul-carving beast could be so strong. It gave him a sense of oppression that not even a 100,000-year soul beast could give him. Heavenly Void Godly Sword. Wu Xianghe let out a clear shout, and his body suddenly erupted with an intense brilliance. His soul power started to circulate rapidly, as if he was about to unleash a big move. Following that, his entire body started to change. His face started to become younger. His lazy and turbid eyes started to brighten. His body started to grow taller. His soul power undulations started to strengthen. The color of his soul rings started to darken. This was a sign that he was becoming stronger. Oh? Is this the special effect of a cultivation technique? Wang Feng was quite interested in it. He originally wanted to use a special cultivation technique for his life soul contract. However, he felt that it was too complicated. He wanted to cultivate and become stronger. It wasn't a problem to rely on himself. A cultivation technique could only be used as a support. It could only aid the cultivation of soul beasts and soul-carving masters. Now that he saw Wu Xianghe using this cultivation technique, Wang Feng had this thought again. This cultivation technique can even change a person's age. It should be related to the martial soul. It's amazing. Wang Feng praised as he watched. This world indeed didn't lack geniuses. To be able to create such a cultivation technique, he must be an extremely talented person. In the 10,000 years of history, who knew how many legendary figures and geniuses were buried? After Wu Xianghe circulated his own cultivation technique, he entered a brand new state. If Wu Xianghe only displayed the strength of a soul emperor and relied on the uniqueness of his martial soul and soul rings to reach the level of a soul sage. Chapter 1171. This meant that Wu Xianghe's abilities were close to that of a soul Dalu. It could be seen from the fact that Wu Xianghe looked at least 10 years younger. Sword Oath. Wu Xianghe clenched his fist, and all the frost on his body was blown away by his powerful aura. The formless sky void sword appeared in his hand once again. The difference was that a streak of blood extended from his hand to the formless sky void sword. This caused the sky void sword to take on a corporeal form. This scene captivated many of the spectators. Such a rare attack made everyone's eyes light up. Their hearts tensed up once again. It's a pity. Although the owner of the Sky Void Sword has a special technique, his cultivation speed is too slow. Qian Duo sighed. He can't participate in the Continental Elite Soul Master Tournament, regardless of whether it's the youth or advanced division. His soul power is below 70. However, he's already over 20. It's a pity. Otherwise, he would be able to showcase his abilities in the tournament. It's indeed a pity. Yan Xiaozhi shook his head. It was a blessing for the Purple Star College to have someone with such a martial soul, but it wasn't a blessing at the same time. After the Sky Void Sword was stained with a blood-red color, Wu Xianghe finally moved. Soul Skill, Time Void Slash. Wu Xianghe's figure flashed, and he charged towards Qilin Lord Bingmu at a speed that was several times faster than before. The sky void sword in his hand rose from the ground. He didn't take a step forward. His original appearance of 20 years old quickly aged again. It was very strange. Sword radiance swept across the icy ground. Qilin Lord Bingmu focused his gaze. This human was indeed powerful. Qilin Lord Bingmu snorted coldly. He stomped on the ground, and ice walls quickly rose from the ground. They were at least 7 to 8 meters tall. Within 30 meters, 8 of them were erected. They were like iron walls. However, under Wu Xianghe's attack, a hole appeared in the 8 ice walls almost instantaneously. What was even more impressive was that Wu Xianghe's momentum wasn't reduced at all. Seeing this, Qilin Lord Bingmu also charged towards Wu Xianghe. Both parties were extremely fast. They were like 2 streaks of flowing light that clashed. Rumble! The instant they collided, an intense soul energy fluctuation exploded out. Countless sword chi accompanied by the powerful absolute ice aura wreaked havoc, covering the auras of countless people. But a moment later, a figure rushed out. It was the injured Wu Xianghe. He broke through the obstruction of Lin Lord Ice Mother, but because of this, he was attacked by Lin Lord Ice Mother and suffered a lot of damage. As soon as they rushed out, many of the audience stood up. Wu Xianghe's long sword was still dragging on the ground. His age had changed back to around 30 years old. This mystical sword skill was actually executed using the concept of time and the passing of time. In the process of executing it, the user's age would change. Countless people clicked their tongues in wonder when they saw this soul skill, and they were astonished. However, there was no need to doubt its strength. At this moment, many of the audience's hearts couldn't help but tighten. Would he be able to defeat the founder of the Soul Renters if he managed to get past that powerful soul beast? Many people suddenly recalled the battle between Zhang Lishuan and Wang Feng a few months ago. It was equally exciting. What was different was that Wu Xianghe's spirit, condition, and aura were all at their peak. This was his most stunning sword. Lin Lord Ice Mother waved his hand and dispersed the fog around him. He smiled as he looked at Wu Xianghe's back. In fact, Wu Xianghe was very smart when they clashed earlier. He paid the price of being injured and didn't clash head-on with him. Otherwise, his sword aura wouldn't be so strong. If he clashed with him, it would be reduced by more than half. However, Wu Xianghe was very clear-headed. He knew what he wanted to do, so he didn't choose to clash head-on. Wu Xianghe seemed to have turned into a beam of sword light as the divine light flashed like crimson lightning. The heavenly void sword carried boundless sword light as it slashed towards Wang Feng. Boom, boom, boom. Before the sword landed, countless icicles exploded in all directions. The sound was earth-shattering. The explosion spread in all directions with Wu Xianghe as the center. The fog covered everyone's vision once again. Thump, thump, thump. Countless hearts started to beat rapidly. Even Din Chun and He Wantian were watching intently. Wu Xianghe could be considered as the strongest existence in the Purple Star Academy other than himself. Hao's teacher, Huiyu Hao, and the others were also watching. They didn't even dare to breathe loudly. The higher-ups of the Shrek Academy, led by Yin Xiaozhe, also stood up to watch. Today's competition had pushed the atmosphere to a climax. Although the competition in front of them wasn't the best in the continent, it was still very intense. It was an exciting battle. Victory and defeat affected everyone's hearts. The fog started to disperse rapidly amidst the explosions. After a short while, the scene in front of everyone finally appeared. In that instant, everyone seemed to have been petrified at the same time. Wu Xianghe's heavenly void sword was about to land on Wang Feng's head, but Wang Feng caught it with both hands. A deep hole appeared on the ground where the two of them were. However, the heavenly void sword didn't land on him. Wu Xianghe stared at it. The figure that was frozen in mid-air didn't land on the ground under the heavenly void sword, which was frozen like a statue. What's this move called? Wu Xianghe asked in disbelief. It's 100% empty-handed. Wang Feng swung his palms and flung Wu Xianghe away. If you can become a soul sage and use this move, I might be able to catch a blade with my bare hand. You might still have a chance. Wu Xianghe was speechless. Wu Xianghe spun a few times in midair before landing on the ground. The heavenly void sword also became formless at this moment. Wu Xianghe was silent for a long time. Suddenly, he felt a little tired. He thought that he could defeat this soul charmer after defeating that powerful soul-signing beast. Who knew that this soul charmer wasn't weaker than that soul beast? Was he really a rank 20 soul master? A rank 20 soul master could even kill a streak of sword chi, let alone receive this sword with his bare hands. Wu Xianghe looked at that soul beast again, and vaguely understood something. They were all freaks. This 6,000-year soul beast was also unreasonably strong. This soul charmer was also unreasonably strong. Wu Xianghe couldn't be sure how strong his opponent's body was. Even a normal soul Douluo might not be able to receive that sword. How could he receive it so easily? Could his opponent's body be comparable to a titled Douluo's? End of chapter. Chapter 1172. Wu Xianghe wasn't sure, but he knew that it was really unbelievable. Not to mention him, everyone who was watching this scene was the same. Even the black-clothed referee was a little dumbfounded. The Shrek Academy can't cultivate such a freak. Where did this person come from? He was extremely shocked. No, the word freak could no longer be used to describe him. With this level of physical strength, even if he ate some heaven and earth treasures, he would probably eat baskets after baskets of them. Either he was talented and didn't know how to cultivate and meditate, and only knew how to train his body. After training for hundreds or thousands of years, he could also reach this level. Otherwise, this soul power of more than 20 ranks was too strange. All kinds of ridiculous thoughts flashed through his mind one by one. The black-clothed referee was silent for a long time. He recalled the matches in his mind. Every battle of the other party's 4 disciples could be said to be very exciting, and it opened his eyes. The combination of a soul contract master and a soul beast formed a powerful combat power, which was simply unconstrained and full of changes. Their soul power levels weren't high, and their soul beasts weren't old, but they displayed great strength. They defeated an enemy many times stronger than them. The founder of the Soul Contract Master was even more unimaginably strong. Although the other party was the founder of the Soul Contract Master and would be very strong, he was already mentally prepared for this. But he never expected that he would be strong to this extent. The other party's soul beast and his strength all proved that soul contract masters could shine even in the field of intermediate and advanced soul masters. Moreover, he was fighting against a strong opponent. The only bad thing was that it couldn't be replicated. The other party's soul beast had never been seen before, and the other party's strength was also incredible. The black-clothed referee was extremely suspicious that unless the other party was a titled Douluo, there was no chance of defeating the other party. Just now, the other party didn't even reveal his martial soul. And the soul contract master's ability, the kind of strength that a soul master and soul beast could display through the cooperation, he didn't reveal it at all. Just relying on the soul beast and the tip of the iceberg of his strength, he was already in an invincible position. The great soul arena was very quiet. After a while, the black-clothed referee took a deep look at Wang Feng, and when no one from the 2 academies came down to compete, he announced Wang Feng's victory. As if they were still immersed in the shock from before, there were no cheers when the victory was announced. It wasn't until Wang Feng walked up to the stage that the cheers erupted like a tsunami. Your 2 academies aren't good enough. Wang Feng glanced at He Wantian and Dinchen. I haven't shown my true ability yet. Wang Feng wasn't bragging. He really didn't take it out. After recovering 1/5 of his strength had reached a very strong level. Once one of the God King's 5 seals was released, no one below the titled Douluo level was a match for him. That was a physical strength that could match a true God King at rank 100. Even without the support of any soul power, he was still terrifyingly strong. No one could withstand such a powerful force. Long Xie hadn't come out yet, and Lin Lord Bingmu hadn't used his full strength either. Don't forget, Lin Lord Bingmu was now Dark Lin Lord Bingmu. He had the ultimate darkness attribute. Under normal circumstances, there was only one ultimate attribute. That was why it was called the ultimate attribute. However, the birth of Lin Lord Bingmu was too bizarre. It was born from the egg of an evil soul beast. Hence, it had 2 ultimate attribute. Furthermore, the power of absolute ice was an ice attribute that surpassed ultimate attribute. The only problem was that Lin Lord Bingmu couldn't use 2 ultimate attributes at the same time. He could only use one before using the other. This was similar to how a soul master couldn't use the soul skills of 2 martial souls at the same time. Even so, once Lin Lord Bingmu used the darkness attribute, Wu Xianghe would be in trouble. The reason why they didn't use it was because Lin Lord Bingmu and Wang Feng hadn't practiced controlling the darkness attribute. Otherwise, it would have killed him. Furthermore, they were familiar with the power of absolute ice. Lin Lord Bingmu could adapt to this body and regain control of the power of absolute ice. Expert, you must be joking. Dinchen suddenly laughed. I can't understand why you're pretending to be a rank 20 soul master with such strength. If you say that you're a titled Douluo, I'll definitely believe it. However, I understand your difficulties. I'm sure you've entered the Shrek Academy to spread the word about soul charters, right? President Chun did not wait for Wang Feng's reply and continued, putting everything else aside, this exchange has broadened my horizons as a soul contractor. I don't dare to say whether it's evil or not. However, soul charters are definitely an extremely powerful profession. As he spoke, Dean Chun clasped his hands and bowed. I believe that we'll have the chance to meet you again in the future. I hope that we'll be able to see your exceptional talent as a soul charter again. We'll meet again in the future of the Continental Elite Soul Master Tournament. Dean Chun looked deeply at Wang Feng before turning to leave. He Wantian smiled and said, Impressive. If old Chin doesn't dare to say it, then I'll say it. This soul charter is extraordinary. Our 2 academies are convinced today. However, there's still a long way to go. Although we can't let you unleash your true abilities today, the Northern Harmony Academy will definitely regret it when the Continental Elite Soul Master Tournament comes. He Wantian's tone was very casual. He glanced at the 4 of them, and a strange light flashed in his eyes. Goodbye. He Wantian clasped his hands and left with his student. He didn't seem to want to stay any longer. After being defeated consecutively and so thoroughly, they naturally didn't have the face to stay any longer. However, they secretly remembered soul charters. This was a new cultivation system that overturned tradition and was extremely powerful. Too strong. On the way back, the students behind He Wantian were still silent. How can a rank 20 soul master be so strong? No matter how Fei Long thought about it, he couldn't figure it out. However, it was the truth. It doesn't matter if he's strong or not, but soul charters are really strong. The volcano martial soul master, Mo Yang, shook his head and said, That Huoyu Hao has 2 soul beasts, and each of them has 2 soul skills, which makes a total of 4 soul skills. For soul skills, plus the 2 soul skills he already has, makes a total of 6 soul skills, not to mention the other enhancement. Just the 6 soul skills alone is a combination that only a soul emperor can have. In addition to the soul beast's characteristics, it perfectly solves the weakness of a spiritual-type soul master's defense. How can they fight? Furthermore, those soul beasts don't seem to have any tendency to revolt. Huang Yan used her ventriloquism and spent a lot of effort to make that eagle turn to attack the soul charter, but it still failed. End of chapter. Chapter 1173. Being a soul contractor isn't that simple. It's not just about taming soul beasts. Speaking of which, I'm really interested in becoming a soul contractor now. He sighed. It doesn't matter if you're interested or not. It's mainly because that teacher Wang is really handsome. If it's possible, I want to become his student too. Huang Yen giggled. It doesn't matter if he's handsome or not. The main thing is that he's too strong. Su Qing shook her head and said, the way those 4 students fought must have been taught by him. If one person has 2 more soul beasts, it's equivalent to having 2 more helpers. We can be considered to have restrained them, but we still can't do anything about it. This means that soul contractors aren't suitable for the traditional restraining relationship between soul masters. I also want to become a soul contractor. I think so too. Fei Long opened his mouth. The rest looked at him. He was the one who objected the most. I think all of you are right. Fei Long laughed embarrassedly. All right, let's stop talking nonsense. Are you planning to betray the academy just like that? Huan Tian said unhappily, all of you will be seeded elites who will enter East Feng Academy in the future. Don't lack confidence in yourselves. Although soul contractors are strong, as long as they unleash the strength of traditional soul masters, they won't be too far off. Let's prepare for the Continental Soul Master Tournament. This is the most prestigious tournament on the continent. Both empires will be participating. If you're lucky, you'll be able to see the battles between the strongest individuals on the continent. It's still a question whether soul contractors will be able to enter the continent's most prestigious tournament. After bidding farewell to Yan Xiaozhe and the rest, they gradually walked away. Congratulations! Zhang Lishuan and Ma Xiaodao walked over from Yan Xiaozhe's side and smiled as they stood beside Wang Feng. The few of you have made me see you in a different light. Ma Xiaodao grabbed their shoulders and was very happy. You've made the academy proud. All of you performed so brilliantly. Even my hands are itching. If not for the fact that I don't have a soul contract beast, I would want to go up and fight. She had been watching the entire time. It could be said that her heart hadn't been at ease since the beginning. She was excited and nervous at the same time. Especially the last scene. That's right, Sister Xiaodao. Don't you know who taught us? Xiao Xiao chuckled. Ma Xiaotao glanced at Wang Feng, her eyes filled with admiration and worship. He admired the other party for being able to find these 4 soul-bonded beasts for the 4 of them and being able to teach them in just a few days. They were in awe of the other party's strength. He was terrifyingly strong. The soul-bonding beast was strong and so was the person. In comparison, Zhang Lishuan was even more shocked by Wang Feng's abilities. As someone who had fought Wang Feng to a draw, she naturally knew how powerful he was. She didn't expect him to change so much after reaching rank 20. How could this be? After today, there will probably be a lot of people who want to be your disciple. Zhang Lishuan smiled as she looked at Wang Feng. You'll be too busy in the future. Wang Feng shook his head and said, I won't stay for long. I might leave after today. Zhang Lishuan was stunned when she heard that. The others were also silent for a moment. Perhaps they were all mentally prepared. Before I leave, teacher invites you to the Sea God's Pavilion. Zhang Lishuan said softly, Senior, please. Zhang Lishuan's teacher was Elder Mu from the Sea God's Pavilion, the dragon god Douluo Muen. She was also a rank 99 exceptional Douluo from the Shrek Academy. She was one of the most powerful individuals in the world. Oh! Wang Feng smiled. It seemed like it was time to enter the Sea God's Pavilion. His trip to the Shrek Academy was coming to an end. Alright, the few of you should recall today's battle and think about it. I'll still be in the academy for the next few days. Wang Feng said, There's also a class about soul contractors. I'll explain everything about them in detail to fill in the blank. The 4 of them nodded. Wang Feng followed Zhang Lishuan out of the soul dueling arena and walked towards the Lake Heart Island in the inner courtyard. It was afternoon, and the sun wasn't very strong. The Lake Heart Island was still very majestic. Wang Feng followed Zhang Lishuan along the only small path that led into the palace. With Wang Feng's eyesight, he could see that the Lake Heart Island was filled with older buildings. Most of them were made of wood, and had an antique feel to them. They even looked like villas. This was the environment of the inner courtyard students, and it was much better than the outer courtyard students. You've been in the academy for almost 5 months. You might not have heard of Elder Mu in the outer courtyard. Zhang Lishuan gave a simple introduction. This was the dragon god Douluo Muen. The previous master of the sea god's pavilion was passing down his position. The next master would be another titled Douluo Xianzi. Zhang Lishuan was Mu'in's disciple. She wasn't even 23 years old, but she was already a soul sage. She was certain to become a soul Douluo in the next 3 years. Her talent was the best in the entire academy. Exceptional Douluo. Wang Feng sighed. Mu-En possessed the best beast soul, the radiant holy dragon. He was like a father to dragon-type martial souls. In fact, Wang Feng was very surprised when he heard about this martial soul. The dragon god had 9 direct sons, and one of them was the radiant holy dragon. It controlled the power of holy light, and was very strong. He didn't expect there to be a soul master with a radiant holy dragon as his martial soul. Even if it mutated, it couldn't have mutated, right? The radiant holy dragon is very impressive for a soul master. Long Xie clicked his tongue. The radiant holy dragon is a direct descendant of the dragon god. It's on the same level as Di Tian in the great star Do forest. How can a human have a martial soul of such a level? Normally, it's a subdragon martial soul, but it's already very impressive. Mu-En should be a descendant of the Blue Lightning Tyrant sect. He mutated. Wang Feng explained. However, the birth of a martial soul was a mystery. A mutation created too many branches and possibilities. As a direct descendant of the dragon god, the strongest radiant holy dragon was comparable to a god. Although it was destroyed by those gods, I don't think it's possible that it's just a mutation. Mu-En might have obtained part of the radiant holy dragon's power. That's why he inherited this martial soul. For example, a broken body. Otherwise, it's impossible for a human to have a martial soul of such a level. Long Xie shook his head. It's just like a god. If a god's body is used as his martial soul, he must have the god's permission, or he must possess part of the god's power. Long Xie's words made sense. The sea god's Douluo possessei's martial soul was the sea god himself. Possessei was chosen as the sea god's successor. Qianrenxue was the same. End of chapter. Chapter 1174. The angel martial soul had to be worshipped to the angel god to be bestowed with it. It was passed down from generation to generation, but Wang Feng didn't think it was right. If that's the case, where did the gods get their martial souls from before they became gods? The angel god had the angel martial soul before he became a god. He became the angel god because of this martial soul. Long Xie was speechless. This was the problem of the chicken laying the egg. The birth of martial souls was a mystery. The Federation had studied them for a long time, but they could only classify them and study how they mutated. They couldn't figure out how they came to be even after many years. You're right, boss. But the descendants of the dragon god are different. They're soul beasts. The 9 dragon sons were the first to be born. Mu-En has the radiant holy dragon martial soul. He must have seen the remains of the radiant holy dragon. Long Xie shook his head. Otherwise, he wouldn't have such a martial soul. Wang Feng smiled. He didn't argue with Long Xie. Do you think there's a soul master with the real dragon god as his martial soul? Wang Feng suddenly thought of something. Long Xie almost wet his pants when he heard Wang Feng's idea. That's impossible. Long Xie shook his head. Why not? Wang Feng sneered. The dragon god split into the golden dragon king and the silver dragon in the great star Do forest. If the two powers combine, it'll be the dragon god's power. If this power is injected into a human, the dragon god martial soul might appear. This was somewhat similar to his angel of light and dark martial soul. The only difference was that the angel of light and dark had 7 different origin powers. Wang Feng only needed to awaken the power of judgment to destroy Moen in the purple maple soul beast forest. It was the nemesis of evil soul beasts. Speaking of which, the angels of light and dark were created because of these 7 different types of origin power. It was part of the origin tribulation Godking's form. The dragon god was the same. It was just that he had split into 2 different origin powers. Alright, boss, you're too imaginative. It's possible. Long Xie nodded. The dragon god is dead, but his power is still there. The golden dragon king was a very cruel and violent fellow, and if he were in the divine realm, he would have most likely been skinned alive. The silver dragon managed to escape the calamity. To be honest, I'm guessing that when she saw you being sealed by the God King, she probably thought that you were a pitiful person. However, I would never have imagined that your relationship with those 5 God Kings. Long Xie burst into laughter. Wang Feng shook his head. What are you thinking about? Zhang Lishuan couldn't help but ask when she saw Wang Feng remaining silent. It's nothing. Wang Feng coughed a few times. That's right, since I've entered the Sea God's Pavilion, according to our agreement, the Sea God's Pavilion will be sealed. I can tell you how to solve the problem of your body. Zhang Lishuan was slightly stunned. What is it? She didn't expect him to still remember. For months ago, Wang Feng discovered that there was a serious problem with Zhang Lishuan's 7th soul ring when he fought her. As a result, his soul skill, waning waxing moons, had a major flaw. He had told Zhang Lishuan that he would tell her the solution once they entered the Sea God's Pavilion. Zhang Lishuan thought that he had forgotten about it, but she didn't want to bring it up. She didn't expect him to still remember. I think you should have guessed a little, right? Wang Feng asked. Zhang Lishuan was silent for a moment before she slowly opened her mouth. Become a soul contract master? That's right. Wang Feng nodded. Your 7th soul ring was formed because you used the wrong method to absorb the soul ring of a demon illusion beast, resulting in the demon illusion aura remaining in your soul ring. As it involves soul rings, it's difficult to eradicate it completely. That's why you have to find a demon illusion beast and sign a soul contract with it. This demon illusion beast can absorb the demon illusion aura in your 7th soul ring, and it can even become stronger. It can be easily resolved. Zhang Lishuan opened her mouth and wanted to say something. Are you trying to say that demon illusion beasts are rare? Wang Feng laughed. Zhang Lishuan nodded. Demon illusion beasts that could change their forms were rare and difficult to find. Not to mention signing a soul contract with them. There are actually quite a few demon illusion beasts in the Great Star Do Forest. Wang Feng sighed. However, these soul beasts are very good at concealing themselves. Most people are fooled by the soul beasts they transform into. That's why it's difficult to find them. In fact, there are still some of them, and they're not difficult to find. However, they're in the core of the Great Star Do Forest. It's more dangerous for the both of you. But if I absorb a demon illusion beast's soul ring, will it still sign a soul contract with me? Zhang Lishuan shook her head. To them, I should be their enemy, right? You can refer to He Kaitu on this point. Wang Feng explained. Firstly, you've misunderstood. A life-soul contract is beneficial to both parties. Demon illusion beasts are very intelligent soul beasts. They know how to make a choice. Signing a life-soul contract is not only useful for the both of you, but also for the other soul beasts. Your talent is not bad. It's rare among humans. When they understand the life-soul contract, they might fight to become your soul contract beast. Zhang Lishuan was stunned when she heard this for the first time. This was a novel way of putting it. This made her even more curious about soul contract masters. "Thank you," Zhang Lishuan said softly after a long silence. At this point, they finally arrived at the Sea God's Pavilion. This was a majestic building. It was dozens of meters tall, and was cylindrical in shape. It was completely white and flawless. From afar, it exuded a holy light. A dragon's roar could be heard. At the entrance, Wang Feng saw Yan Xiaozhe and the others immediately after being rescued. There were also a few elders in the Sea God's Pavilion that he couldn't name. They were all titled Doulu. Wang Feng counted them carefully. There were at least 10 titled Douluo. There were even a few who were above rank 95. It was very rare. They represented the top powers of the Shrek Academy. They were also the foundation of the Shrek Academy's position as the top academy on the continent. It was important to note that there were only slightly more than 100 titled Douluo on the continent. "Your Excellency, you've let us witness an extremely exciting battle." Yan Xiaozhe smiled as he looked at Wang Feng. After the tournament ended, they immediately returned to the Sea God's Pavilion. They also knew that it was time to welcome this mysterious Wang Feng. "I'm just so. Wang Feng waved his hand. "Let's skip the pleasantries. Let's enter the Sea God's Pavilion first. We can also see what the current exceptional Douluo is like." Yan Xiaozhe and the rest had strange expressions on their faces. They didn't say anything else. Together with Zhang Lishuan, they brought Wang Feng into the Sea God's Pavilion. After many twists and turns, Wang Feng heard a voice in his mind when he entered the Sea God's Pavilion. That was the system's voice. P.S. 6 updates today. There's one more update tomorrow. Chapter 1175. Ding. Congratulations to the host for successfully punching in the Sea God's Pavilion. You have obtained the middle part of one spirit into 3 pure ones. The next time you punch in, you will be at the extreme ice layer. Although he had not heard the voice for a long time, it was still familiar. In fact, with Wang Feng's current strength, he roughly knew what the system meant. The system existed in his soul. It was one with his soul, so it was called a system. However, it was more like a higher dimension life form with self-awareness. It had a feeling of transcendence. In Wang Feng's opinion, the system itself was at a very high level. However, the system was more like a passive initiator. It would only be activated when he triggered the system's requirements. At other times, the system would not respond at all. Occasionally, it would give an obscure hint when it appeared. No matter what, it was like a guide to his direction. The system itself would deduce the difficulty of each punch and give different levels of suggestions to try. From this point, the system itself was terrifyingly powerful. The difficulty of punching in this time was not low. It was given the middle part. Without the first part as an inspiration, the middle part alone was useless. The middle part of one spirit into 3 pure ones was very powerful. After cultivating the middle part as an avatar and the main body, they could share the abilities of both sides. In other words, after cultivating the middle part, Wang Feng's avatar could also use the abilities of the Chaos Green Lotus. If he wanted to defeat and kill himself, he would have to destroy both of them at the same time. Otherwise, Wang Feng would never die. Wang Feng estimated that the second part would involve the secret of merging avatars and becoming a god. At that time, he might split into a second avatar. However, it would take a lot of time to cultivate and comprehend the middle part. It would take at least a few years. Because of the experience of the first part, it would not take too long to comprehend and cultivate the middle part. Especially in Wang Feng's current state. Wang Feng was confident that it was not easy to comprehend such a level of secret skill in such a short time. The next punch-in was at the extreme ice layer. That was the core of the extreme north. Wang Feng was a little surprised by the punching location. Although the system did not say it explicitly, in fact, every punching location had more or less hidden difficulties. For example, if Wang Feng had barged into the sea god's pavilion. Looking at the sea god's pavilion now, there were more than 10 titled Doulu. They would probably be gone before they could even enter. At that time, Wang Feng had not recovered much of his strength. It was the same for the extreme ice layer. This meant that it would be difficult for him to reach the extreme ice layer. Wang Feng followed the group into the sea god's pavilion. He finally saw the dragon god Douluo, Mu'en, in the center of the pavilion. A level 99 peerless expert. There was also an old man with unkempt hair and a beggar's face. At this moment, he was holding a large drumstick and chewing loudly. The Taotai Douluo Xianzi was one of the 3 honorary Douluo heavenly kings of the Federation. Mu'en was sitting in a wheelchair. His face was slightly pale and he looked a little dispirited. However, he still exuded a sacred aura that was extremely powerful. Just their auras alone were a lot stronger than the dozen or so titled Dalu. One could imagine that his strength was definitely at the top of this world. The moment Wang Feng entered, he felt Mu'en's mind power land on him. His aura was so strong that it was almost tangible. It covered the entire sky. The titled Douluo, led by Yen Shaozhe, stopped in their tracks. Wang Feng stood in front of them and laughed. A mere transcendent Douluo's soul power was basically useless against him. Don't look at how Wang Feng was only over level 20. His body's toughness already far exceeded this level. It really is the aura of a radiant holy dragon. Long Xie clicked his tongue in amazement. A human soul master with such a martial soul. No wonder he's one of the most powerful humans in this world. Wang Feng laughed. He stood in front of them, but he did not stop. Wang Feng looked at Mu'en and then at Xianzi. Xianzi also looked at Wang Feng after taking a bite of his drumstick. Due to the special characteristics of his martial soul, Xianzi needed to eat continuously. This was a special kind of cultivation. I've lived for 200 years. After looking at each other for a long time, Mu'en slowly said, "However, I'm still confused. I don't know where you're from. Since you claim to be the master of the 9th founder, you must have lived for at least 10,000 years." Speaking until here, Mu'en's aged face smiled. To be able to maintain this talisman lord's appearance for more than 10,000 years, it's truly amazing. Are you a god? A god is not as good as me, Wang Feng said. Mu'en was speechless. This was what it meant to shock people to death. Cough cough. Mu'en coughed a few times. Actually, it doesn't matter where you're from. However, you want to enter the Sea God's Pavilion. I'm sure you want to use the Shrek Academy to spread the news that you're a soul master, right? This world is huge. 4,000 years ago, there was the Sun-Moon continent. The world is always moving. Apart from the Sun-Moon continent and the Douluo continent, there might be other continents in this world. Could it be that you're from another world? Mu'en looked at Wang Feng. As a powerful individual who stood at the peak of the world, it was not easy for him to think of this. However, Wang Feng shook his head and said, "I'm from the Star Battle Sacred Mountain. You can treat it as another world." Star Battle Sacred Mountain. These words were like a catalyst that caused the expressions of everyone in the pavilion to change. Star Battle Sacred Mountain? Xianzi burped. Impressive. There are still people who can walk out of that place? The Federation has a rule that no human soul master is allowed to go near that place. Since the Federation was established and the first leader set this rule, no one dared to go there. Let's not talk about other things. Just the 100,000-year soul beasts near the Star Battle Sacred Mountain, as well as the few strongest soul beasts, made it impossible for anyone to walk out of there unscathed. To the Federation, the Star Battle Sacred Mountain was a forbidden land. However, it was also a land of fortune. It had brought grace to the continent, but it had also brought disaster to the continent. Just a few words were unable to describe the ancient sacred mountain that had existed for 10,000 years. How could a human walk out of that place? They immediately felt that Wang Feng was lying. A few hundred years ago, a Federation geographer thought that the Star Battle Sacred Mountain might be connected to another world. This caused the 5 energy tides that changed the entire continent. Mu En suddenly said, later on, this theory was thought to be nonsense. It is indeed nonsense. Wang Feng nodded. That place isn't connected to another world. However, a certain place should be connected to another world. As for me, you don't have to guess too much. I don't have any evil intentions in this world. My only goal is to spread the word about soul charmers. End of chapter. Chapter 1176. Wang Feng waved his hand. I'm not from another world. At this point, Wang Feng suddenly froze. Strictly speaking, he should be from another world, right? That makes sense. Mu En smiled. You have great ambitions. Being a soul charmer is very important. It's a pity that the situation is tense now. The relationship between humans and soul beasts is worsening because of the evil soul beasts. Why do you say that? Wang Feng looked at Mu En. You have the aura of an evil soul beast on you. You must have been injured by an evil soul beast? To be able to injure you, these evil soul beasts must be million-year evil soul beasts. Or are they rank 99 evil soul masters? Wang Feng knew about Mu En's injuries the moment he entered. And Xian Zi? You can tell? Mu En looked at Wang Feng in surprise. He and Xian Zi hadn't told anyone about their injuries except for the elders in the Sea God's Pavilion. After all, the implications were complicated. If he revealed their injuries, it would cause chaos in the Federation's Soul Master world. Mu En looked at Yan Xiaozhe and the others. They wouldn't tell anyone about this. But how could he tell? You have the aura of an evil soul beast on you. No, more accurately, it's called dark demonic energy. Wang Feng said slowly. Mu En's body shook when he heard the words dark demonic energy. He looked at Wang Feng in shock. Did you encounter the source of those evil soul beasts? Purple Maple Soul Beast Forest? Purple Maple Soul Beast Forest? Wang Feng nodded slightly. Mu En's expression changed when he saw this. He pushed the wheelchair in front of Wang Feng. It's the Dark Demon Race. You encountered the Dark Demon Race. How was it? Le Xuan said that you defeated a powerful evil soul beast in the Purple Maple Soul Beast Forest. Was it the Dark Demon Race? Did you kill him? Impossible. How could you kill the Dark Demon Race? Mu En muttered to himself and shook his head. But in the end, Mu En looked at Wang Feng with a heavy expression. It seems like you encountered it too. Not only did you encounter it, but you were also injured? Wang Feng looked at Mu En and Xian Zi. Wang Feng clearly remembered the Mo-en he met in the Purple Maple Soul Beast Forest. He was very strong. It had an extremely strong life force, and it was very difficult to kill it with physical attack. It also had an extremely terrifying spiritual link soul skill. The memories of the living beings who could cross over to this world. In that dark demon realm, he might only be a cannon soldier at the lowest level, but he possessed strength comparable to a titled Doulu. Of course, he wouldn't be a match for the dragon god Dalu. However, it wouldn't be easy for a normal titled Douluo to kill him. And this was only the Purple Maple Soul Beast Forest. If any other Soul Beast Forest were to encounter a creature of this level, it'd be impossible for them to escape. In that case, he could not rule out the possibility that there was an existence even stronger than Mo-en. Could it be that the two of you were injured by him? Wang Feng was rather curious. To be able to injure an expert of Mu En's level, the other party was definitely not a cannon fodder. He was definitely stronger than Mo-en. As for the others, they looked on blankly, not knowing what the two of them were talking about. What was the Dark Demon Clan? Is it related to the Evil Soul Beast? Clearly, Mu En had not told them about this. How did you destroy the Dark Demon Clan that was born from the Evil Soul Beast's egg? After a while, Mu En asked. Their bodies were very strong. I relied on the radiant holy dragon's holy light power to destroy them. However, my soul was also injured. How did you? Wang Feng laughed. Mu En was indeed very strong. He had the radiant holy dragon, which had a restraining effect on the dark demon Qi. Otherwise, it would have been very difficult to destroy the dark demon clan. However, compared to his judgment lightning punishment from the origin tribulation god king, it was still much weaker. However, Mu En's soul power was very high. Teacher, what are you talking about? Zhang Lishuan asked softly. Ever since you came back, you asked the academy to lock down and forbid any students from entering the soul beast forest. You said that there were evil soul beasts causing trouble, but what exactly happened? The rest of the elders also turned to look at Mu En. It's time to tell them. Xianzi wiped the oil off his mouth. Since they already know, we can't hide it from them anymore. If we knew earlier, we would have made preparations earlier. Mu En sighed and took a deep look at Wang Feng before he slowly opened his mouth and said, Xianzi and I were invited to the Central Martial Soul Palace for a meeting a few months ago. However, we were actually invited to suppress a soul beast forest in the north. All of you know that the Fifth World War of the Soul Beasts ended with the defeat of the evil soul beasts. However, you didn't know that. When those evil soul beasts retreated, they were very cunning and left their eggs behind in many soul beast forests. After countless years of accumulation, many soul beasts picked up these eggs and nurtured them. In the past 2 years there has been an explosion. What's more, the eggs of these evil soul beasts aren't just ordinary evil soul beasts. Mu En sighed and looked at Xianzi. Xianzi nodded slightly and took out a special crystal from his soul tool. This is a light image soul tool. It can temporarily record and preserve many images. If you activate it with your soul power, you can display these recorded images. The light image soul tool was about the size of a palm. Its internal structure wasn't very complicated. It only had a simple recording function. Xianzi channeled his soul power and injected it. At one end of this crystal, there was a glass-like lens. Light was emitted from this lens and scattered in the void. The scene was then presented. As they were recorded from a distance, they were a little blurry. However, they could still be seen clearly. It was a sky filled with dark clouds. Below them was a boundless soul beast forest. 3 frightening black figures were suspended in mid-air. They exuded an extremely dark aura. They were very similar to Moyin, whom Wang Feng had met before. As the images weren't clear enough, and were still in black and white, this scene was even more frightening. These monsters were born from evil soul beasts. They exuded a special aura that could infect soul beasts and turn them into evil soul beasts. Xianzi pointed at the 3 monsters and said, "They are much scarier than ordinary evil soul beasts. At the same time, their life force is very strong. Most physical attacks can't kill them. Elemental attacks can hurt them, but it's very difficult to kill them. They are very intelligent. They aren't inferior to us humans. This place is one of the outer forests of the extreme north. It's very close to the evil demon forest. In just a month's time, a large number of soul beasts have been infected and turned into evil soul beasts. They are controlled by these monsters. Those below the rank of titled Douluo can't hurt them at all." Chapter 1177. They are all titled Douluo, and many of them are even stronger than other titled Dalu. The image started to change. Many titled Douluo unleashed their martial souls in mid-air and fought with them. The crystal seemed to be unable to record the battle scene after that. Only explosions could be seen in the image. The most important image disappeared, and no one could see the outcome. The light image soul tool can only record this much for now. You might be curious about the result. Xianzi said softly. The result is that of the 5 titled Douluo in the image, 3 died and 2 were injured. Only 1 managed to escape. 2 of them are Class 9 soul engineers from the Sun Moon Empire, and 2 are titled Douluo from the Federation. The last one is the leader of a sect near the extreme north, the Isya sect. After hearing this, everyone felt a chill in their hearts. After the situation here broke out, the Isya sect was almost destroyed half a month later. The disaster spread from here to the rest of the Soul Beast Forest, and the Soul Beasts were infected very quickly. After the Federation realized the severity of the situation, they quickly gathered the few of us and joined forces with the 6 great Douluo heavenly kings, Xianzi and I, to suppress this place. This lineup was very luxurious. 6 of the 12 great Douluo heavenly kings were mobilized. There was also Mu En and Xianzi. There were a total of 8 powerful individuals. We also spent a lot of time investigating. In the end, we spent 2 months to completely suppress these 3 soul beasts. Everyone suffered different degrees of injuries. Elder Mu used the Radiant Holy Dragon's holy power during the battle, and was the closest to them. He even suffered a special spiritual attack. Fortunately, the Star Spirit Heavenly King from the Star Luo political district, who is adept at spiritual power, helped Elder Mu to take on most of this spiritual attack. After saying this, Xianzi sighed softly. Every Douluo heavenly king was at least rank 97. Most of them were at rank 98, and some were at rank 99. This Star Spirit Heavenly King came from the Star Luo political district. His martial soul was the Star River, a strong spiritual type martial soul. He was also one of the only 3 spiritual type titled Douluo. There were 3 digits of titled Douluo on the continent, but there were only 3 spiritual type titled Douluo. There were even fewer of them than food type titled Dalu. There were more than 3 food type titled Douluo on the continent. Did he want to use his strong spiritual power to destroy his opponent's souls? Wang Feng asked. Xianzi was stunned and nodded. Then he was bewitched? You want to devour my soul? Could he use this to obtain information about the other party? Are you seriously injured? Wang Feng continued. Looks like you've encountered the same situation. Xianzi's face was heavy. The Star Spirit Heavenly King has devoured the other party's soul and knows the other party's background. At the same time, the troublesome thing is that after the Star Spirit Heavenly King devoured the other party's soul, the Star Spirit Heavenly King's soul was also infected. Wang Feng shook his head. This was indeed quite troublesome. For people like Moin, even if they were slightly stronger than Moin, they would not be considered true elites in the Dark Devil world. What they knew was limited. For example, the forces of the Dark Devil world and so on. As cannon fodder, they definitely wouldn't know much. But on the other hand, the Star Spirit Heavenly King and the others were in trouble. The Star Spirit Heavenly King was one of the 12 Heavenly Kings of the Federation, and was a core figure of the Federation. If all of his memories were searched, it meant that the Dark Demon Realm didn't know everything about the Douluo continent, but they definitely knew it very well. Clearly, the Star Spirit Heavenly King was also affected by the Soul Link. If Wang Feng hadn't been reminded in time by the Qilin Lord Ice Empress, who had been nurturing in the evil soul beast's egg, he would have been affected too. Later on, Wang Feng relied on the special Angel of Light and Dark Martial Soul to absorb Mo Yin's soul. When he searched Mo Yin's memories, he wasn't affected by the Soul Link. Even if the Dark Demon Realm knew, they would only know about the Angel of Light and Dark Martial Soul, and not Wang Feng. The Dark Angel of the Angel of Light and Dark Martial Soul was most likely from the Dark Demon Realm, which was why it could devour Mo Yin's memories, and not be harmed at all. If other people's martial soul dared to do this, there was a 99% chance that they would be infected by the other party's soul. The Dark Demon Realm sent cannon fodder first to find out the specific situation of the Douluo continent. I'm afraid it's going to be troublesome next. The level of power of the Dark Demon Realm is higher than that of the Douluo continent, and can be compared to the God Realm. It won't be difficult for them to destroy the Douluo continent. They're doing this because they want to conquer the Douluo continent completely and preserve it, and not completely destroy it. Is this their goal? Wang Fengxian thought to himself. Wang Feng guessed that the higher-ups of the Dark Demon Realm were trying to prevent the God Realm from sensing the Dark Demon Realm. Thinking about it this way, Wang Feng could understand many things. These living beings come from another world, which is called the Dark Demon Realm. Xian Zi's expression was incomparably solemn. 1,000 years ago, the Dark Demon Realm opened up a special spatial passageway that led to our continent. The first place was in the Evil Demon Forest. That place was the place with the most evil soul beasts. After the spatial tunnel opened, only some dark demon chi seeped into the continent, causing countless soul beasts to quickly infect and eventually become evil soul beasts. But this special spatial tunnel was unable to expand due to some special reason, causing them to be unable to enter our continent. They could only control the evil soul beasts that were infected by the dark demon chi. That must be because the Douluo continent was reinforced by the restrictions of the God realm, and was formed by the power of rules. Hence, the experts from the Dark Demon Realm were unable to enter the Douluo continent immediately. Helpless, they controlled the evil soul beasts and caused a great soul beast war. They also used this opportunity to send the weakest unborn living beings from their world over in the form of eggs. Using the excuse of the evil soul beasts retreating, they secretly placed these eggs in various large soul beast forests. It was an extremely sinister plan. It was indeed sinister. The experts from the Dark Demon Realm couldn't pass through, so they could only send the weakest unborn primitive living beings through the spatial tunnel. Because this level of living beings wouldn't be stopped by the rules of the God Realm. Only those experts who exceeded the upper limit of this world would be stopped by the rules of the God Realm. This was also the reason why soul beasts were unable to become gods and ascend to the God Realm. When Wang Feng's soul transmigrated, it was also because of this reason. Using the Great Soul Beast War as a barrier, borrowing the Douluo continent itself, they spent hundreds and thousands of years to nurture the experts from the Dark Demon Realm. Once they were born, the entire Douluo continent would be plunged into misery and suffering. Those experts from the Dark Demon Realm were very sinister. It could be said that they used the least amount of effort to successfully pry open the Douluo continent, which was under the jurisdiction of the God Realm. In addition, the Dark Demon Realm blocked the God Realm's perception of the Douluo continent. Even if they sensed that something was amiss, it would be too late. End of chapter. Chapter 1178. Next, the other soul beast forests might also have an outbreak of evil soul beast horde. A storm is brewing. Now do you know why Elder Mu and I forbade students from entering the soul beast forest without permission? Xian Zi looked at everyone. At this moment, everyone was in a state of shock. These things were too terrifying. If this was spread, the entire Federation would be in chaos. In fact, it was far more terrifying than they imagined. At least, that was what Wang Feng thought. The inspection department came to Shrek Academy not only to investigate the matter of soul charters, but also to discuss plans for the next year. Elder Mu pushed the cart a few steps forward and looked at Wang Feng. Do you know why I want to see you? Wang Feng said indifferently, in the next year, the soul beast forest will become more dangerous, which means that it will be harder for soul masters to obtain soul rings. You want to use the Soul Charter's cultivation method to prevent Shrek students from being troubled by soul rings? That's right. Mu En nodded. The outbreak of evil soul beasts means that it will be harder for students to obtain soul rings. The other academies still don't understand what this means. But I know that if we don't prohibit students from entering the soul beast forest, the younger generation of soul masters will be greatly reduced. In the next 5 to 10 years, there will be a gap in our world of soul masters. It's simply a fool's dream to fight against the evil soul beasts and the Dark Demon Realm. But if we prohibit students from entering the soul beast forest, they will be able to survive. But without the support of powerful soul rings, their strength will stagnate. In the next 5 to 10 years, there won't be a gap in our world of soul masters, but our strength will greatly decrease, and it will be difficult to fight. Advancing or retreating meant death. Mu'en had lived for more than 200 years and had outstanding foresight. Since I came back, before the Federation officially announced to the entire continent that soul masters are prohibited from entering the soul beast forest, I didn't think of any solution. Mu'en sighed, because the outbreak of evil soul beasts means that there will be fewer soul beasts. Fewer soul beasts means that it will be harder for soul masters to obtain soul rings. It's a vicious cycle. Even if the dark demon realm doesn't attack humans, they can use this method to cut us off. That's right, Wang Feng praised. To be able to think of this, Mu'en could be considered to be quite insightful. The rest of the people were also startled, cold sweat dripping down their back. But when I came back, the appearance of the soul contractor gave me hope. Mu'en suddenly looked at Wang Feng. Dawn. These two words were not ordinary. You know a lot about soul renters? Wang Feng asked. I don't know much about it, but based on what I know, I don't know much about it. Just working with soul beasts is enough, Mu'en said in a deep voice. As someone who had already fought against the beings of the dark demon realm, he knew that it would be extremely difficult for humans to resist them. However, it was a different story if they teamed up with soul beasts. You have a good eye, Wang Feng said. You've only seen the first level of the soul renderer. You think that the soul renderer is on the second floor, but you don't know that the soul renderer is on the 5th floor. Mu'en was speechless. Yan Shaozhe and the others were speechless. With such a praising tone, did he steal Elder Mu's lines? What was the first level, the second level, and the 5th level? Tomorrow, I'll be giving a lecture on soul renters in detail. Wang Feng pondered and said, We'll talk about it together then. I'll talk about it alone now. I don't want to repeat myself. Don't worry, I won't tell anyone about the dark demon realm and the evil soul beast. After speaking, Wang Feng walked out. Seeing this, Mu'en was stunned. He's really interesting. Xianzi laughed. Elder Mu, shall we go and listen to his lecture tomorrow? Mu'en was silent for a long time before he nodded. Seeing this, Zhang Lishuan and the others were surprised. Elder Mu, you're exceptionally calm today. It's rare to see you being so patient with someone. Duo was curious. Mu'en was one of the most powerful individuals in the world. He was a rank 99, exceptional Doulu. There were less than 10 people who could be compared to him. Those who were stronger than him. How could he tolerate someone being so disrespectful? Perhaps he thought highly of him. However, even if he thought highly of him, this elder who had been in charge of the Sea God's Pavilion for decades wouldn't have such a good temper. Mu'en and Xianzi looked at each other. Lishuan, you can leave first. Prepare tomorrow and see what he's going to say. Elders, please stay behind. After hearing this, Zhang Lishuan left. Only Mu'en, Xianzi, Yan Shaozhe, and Duo were left in the huge Sea God's Pavilion. Before we went to the Central Martial Soul Palace, we had a meeting. Xianzi suddenly said, Elder Mu and I usually don't go to the Central Martial Soul Palace for meetings. We haven't interfered in the Federation's politics for decades. It's also because of this special situation that we went to the Martial Soul Palace for a meeting. Because of this, Elder Mu and I saw the statue of the former Federation's legendary figure, white-robed Popediff, in the Central Martial Soul Palace for the second time. After hearing this, Yan Shaozhe and the others were stunned. You all know that white-robed Popediff has many identities. However, the statues in the world are incomplete. Only the Federation headquarters has a complete statue. Do you know what white-robed Popediff looks like? Xianzi pointed outside where Wang Feng had disappeared. He looks exactly like him. As soon as he said that, everyone was stunned on the spot. The next day, the Shrek Academy was unusually lively. It had only been more than 10 hours since the exchange competition between the 3 academies. The battle scene was still echoing in the minds of many students. Their curiosity, imagination, and desire for soul charmers seemed to be slowly fermenting. And today, the mysterious teacher Wang Feng was going to hold a public lecture in the academy. He was going to explain everything about soul charmers in detail. Teachers and students from the inner and outer academies would all participate in this lecture. Teacher left after this lecture. Sigh, how am I going to survive if I can't see teacher's face? Xiao Xiao sighed and said, I'm short of spiritual food. I'm going to die. You can look at me. Wang Dong chuckled. I'm very handsome too. I can be your spiritual food too. Tisk, I'd rather look at myself than look at you. Xiao Xiao said, to be honest, narcissism is also a form of self-adjustment. Looking in the mirror when your free will help you understand yourself better. Wang Dong. That's a famous saying. Huoyu Hao chuckled. However, there are really a lot of people today. The lecture will be held in the Central Plaza of the Shrek Academy. The Central Plaza was the training plaza of the Shrek Academy. It was usually used for various types of combat training, as well as basic training. Chapter 1179. It was very large, and could hold tens of thousands of people. However, the total number of people in Shrek Academy, including the students, didn't even exceed 10,000. The outer courtyard only had a few thousand people, while the inner courtyard only had 1,000 or so people. Today, they were all gathered in the plaza, which was a rare sight. However, it didn't seem crowded at all. Hey look, it's Sister Nan Nan. She's here too. Xiao Xiao waved her hand in front of her. Sister Nan Nan, the girl in the distance turned her head and looked at Huoyu Hao's group with a clear and beautiful smile on her face. Yesterday's match was very exciting. Jiang Nanan smiled. I was mesmerized by it. Really? Wang Dong giggled. You couldn't have been mesmerized by it, could you? Jiang Nanan blushed slightly and shook her head. No, it was your match. Because your strength isn't much different from mine, your fighting aura resonated with many people. If it were someone else, it wouldn't have been so. That's true. Wang Dong nodded. They were students from the outer courtyard, and new students at that. However, their strength could represent many people from the outer courtyard. There are so many people here. Many teachers are here too. Hikaitu pointed into the distance. Look, there are even teachers from the Soul Tool department. It seems like there are also teachers from the inner courtyard. It seems like the academy is placing a lot of importance on this. It should be because of yesterday's match that the academy is starting to truly acknowledge soul charmers. Most of the teachers from the inner courtyard were soul Douluo, and some were titled Dalu. For example, the elders would also accept disciples, but that was an individual. The appearance of teachers from the inner courtyard meant that the academy was placing a lot of importance on this. How can there be teachers from the inner courtyard? Tangya and Bei Bei walked over together from the distance. She smiled and said, even the elders from the Sea God's Pavilion will be here for today's class. It's just that they're in the sky. Tangya pointed into the sky. There were indeed a few figures floating in the air. Huoyu Hao's group was even more astonished when they saw this. The elders of the Sea God's Pavilion were true titled Dalu. They had only seen Din Yen Xiaozha and Qian Duoduo before. Tangya had a look of pity on her face as she said, I said I would. Little rat, after watching your battle yesterday, I wanted to ask Bei Bei to accompany me to the Soul Beast Forest to catch some soul beasts. It's a pity that the Academy has issued a ban. They said that the Soul Beast Forest is likely to be rioting with evil soul beasts, so we're not allowed to enter the Soul Beast Forest without permission. There were actually quite a few people who had the same thoughts as her. Why are you in such a hurry? Let's listen to Elder Wang's lecture today. Once we truly understand what a soul contract master is, we'll have a chance to do so. Bei Bei smiled and said, That's true. Hey Baldy, you sound like you're called Hikaitu. To tell you the truth, it would be great if you gave me your amethyst rhino. Su Sancher walked out from behind Bei Bei and spoke with envy. You? Hikaitu glanced at Su Sancher. Su Sanchi's figure was tall and sturdy, and was somewhat similar to his own. However, he also knew that Su Sancher was famous. He couldn't help but shake his head and say, "No, the amethyst rhino isn't suitable for you to become your first soul-bonded beast." "How can it not be suitable?" Su Sancher was astonished. "My martial soul is the Xuanwu, and it's one of the strongest defense-type martial souls on the continent. The amethyst rhino's defense is already extremely strong, so it's definitely the most suitable for me." Hikaitu laughed. "It's precisely because your martial soul's defense is extremely strong that the amethyst rhino isn't suitable for you to become your soul-bonded beast. To you, the defensive enhancement that the amethyst rhino provides is just icing on the cake. You should choose something else." Su Sancher was stunned and subconsciously asked, "Why?" At this moment, the group of people had also walked to the central plaza. There were many people, but it wasn't chaotic. On the contrary, it was very orderly. There was a lot of discussion going on. There was a special sound-amplifying soul tool placed on the high platform in front of them, which could transmit sound to the entire plaza. Very quickly, the discussion stopped. "Teacher, come up and wait for you. You should know why soon." Hikaitu took a deep breath. A figure slowly walked up to the high platform in the distance. It could be said that all of the Shrek Academy's students were present. Wang Feng slowly walked up to the stage under the gazes of 10,000 pairs of eyes. Wang Feng was very calm as he was a man who had experienced many big occasions. However, this was his first time in a situation like this. Wang Feng walked in front of the sound-amplifying soul tool and looked at the 10,000 students below the stage. He felt a little emotional. If Huiyu Hao and the others were the first batch of soul contract masters, then these students would be the first generation of soul contract masters. Once the Shrek Academy accepted soul contract masters and established a reputation for themselves, countless soul contract masters would appear on the continent within a year at most. Apart from this, the teacher from the Soul Tool department even took out a specially made light projection soul tool to record this lesson. Wang Feng could only hear the sound of a gentle breeze from the moment he walked up to the stage. It was very quiet below. Wang Feng muttered to himself for 3 seconds. "Can anyone tell me what's the most important thing for a soul master?" The crowd was silent for a long time. Only then did a student stand up and answer crisply. "For us soul masters, there are many things that are important. For example, a martial soul. A good martial soul can unleash unimaginable power. The quality of a martial soul is closely related to a soul master's cultivation talent and innate soul power. But I think the most important thing is a soul ring. Without a soul ring, we can't advance, no matter how good our talent is. Without a soul ring, we lack soul skills. Without a soul ring, we can't improve ourselves." Wang Feng smiled and said, "That's right. A martial soul is very important, but a soul ring is the most important thing for a soul master. So what's the origin of a soul ring? Of course it's a soul beast. Isn't that obvious?" Chatter could be heard from below the stage. "That's right." Wang Feng's smile disappeared. "A soul ring comes from a soul beast. So what I want to ask is, what else?" No answer. Or rather, no answer at all. They looked at each other. "Other than that, there's no other way." Wang Feng continued, "Then, let me ask again. Has anyone calculated how long it would take for a newborn soul beast to cultivate to 10 years of cultivation, 100 years of cultivation, and 1,000 years of cultivation?" This wasn't difficult to answer. According to the research of our Federation's Soul Master World on soul beasts, 1,000 years ago, a scholar who studied soul beasts found out. For a newborn soul beast, the weakest soul beast, to cultivate to 10 years of cultivation, it would normally take close to 10 years. A student with glasses stood up and said in a deep voice, 100 years of cultivation would take at least close to 90 years of cultivation, and 1,000 years of cultivation would take at least 700 years of cultivation. This scholar is called Dalu. He once proposed the soul-beast evolution theory. Wang Feng applauded. These students were really knowledgeable. I think everyone should know what I want to say, right? Wang Feng looked at the crowd. For a soul master, the most important thing is a soul ring. A soul ring comes from a soul beast, and a soul beast's cultivation time is far slower than us humans. Does anyone know what our average soul ring was 5,000 years ago? Chapter 1180. The concept of the average soul ring was very special, because it symbolized the overall strength of the continent's soul masters. 10,000 years ago there was no such concept. This concept was proposed by a leader of the Federation 5,000 years ago. This leader wanted to calculate the average soul ring of the entire continent's soul masters and use this index to determine the strength of a place's soul master world. It's about 6 rings. Another student raised his hand and replied, 5,000 years ago, this concept was just born. At that time, it was during the fourth energy tide. As an index, the average soul ring of the soul master world didn't have a round number. Instead, it was very accurate. After that, the average soul ring has been declining. This student thought for a moment. Last year, the average soul ring of the Federation's soul master world was only 9 rings. This is the first time in the past 100 years that it has dropped below 4 rings. This index was actually very meaningful. 9 rings represented a soul elder. In other words, the average strength of the Federation's soul master world was a soul elder. This was actually very exaggerated. One had to know that the number of soul masters was very large. And this number represented the average strength of the Federation's soul master world, which was a low-level soul master. If the average soul ring was 4 rings, it meant that the average strength was a soul ancestor, which was a mid-level soul master. A difference of 0. 1 index was like heaven and earth. Of course, this was only the average soul ring of the entire Federation. Why was their Shrek Academy the number 1 soul master on the continent? It was because their average soul ring index was the highest. 9 rings. Wang Feng sighed. Why did the average soul ring index drop? Humans are progressing and developing, and so is the world of soul masters. Logically speaking, our average strength should only show an upward trend, so why did it drop? This was the same as GDP. Under normal circumstances, it would increase year by year. It would occasionally drop, but overall it would increase. This represented the progress and development of society. Everyone was silent, because the number of soul beasts is rapidly decreasing. Wang Feng said slowly, the number of soul beasts decreases, so the number of soul rings obtained by soul masters will definitely decrease. So no matter how the soul master world develops, the average soul ring will always decrease. This is because the cultivation speed of soul beasts is far slower than the consumption speed of us soul masters. So, the average soul ring can't increase. In these 10,000 years, if there wasn't the energy tide, the reproduction speed of soul beasts would have increased. The current average soul ring of the Federation should be around 2. It would be lower. No one refuted Wang Feng. I've often thought about it. Wang Feng looked at everyone. What if there are no more soul beasts one day? Where should we go from here? This was probably a problem that had plagued the world of soul cultivators for countless years. No one could solve it. It couldn't be solved either. In midair, regardless of whether it was the elders of the Sea God's Pavilion led by Mu'en, the inner courtyard students, or the outer courtyard students. Actually, he was well aware of it. Where should he go from here? Wang Feng smiled faintly. The soul master cultivation system is the wisdom of our ancestors. It is undeniable, but it is no longer suitable for this era. Hearing this, a student stood up and asked, "Teacher, is this your original intention for creating a soul renderer?" Everyone fell silent. Since ancient times, many soul cultivators had tried to solve this difficult problem. But that was simply impossible. There was nothing he could do. Wang Feng knew that this was because of the rules of this world. It was impossible to change people. Gods might be able to change, but it was very difficult to change them. Now, this teacher of his had great ambitions. He had created this soul contractor just to solve this problem that had existed for thousands of years. Sure enough, Mu En sighed. In the past 10,000 years, there have been a lot of people with such ambitions, but there was no one who could really do it. This person will become a pioneer. It was a grand ambition. In fact, over the years there were still some outstanding people who had this idea. To solve this problem, it wasn't that no one could see it. On the contrary, there were many people who could see it. But it was really too difficult to solve. Over time, no one wanted to solve this impossible problem anymore. However, at this moment, Wang Feng smiled and said, "That's not it. That's not it. My initial goal was to make a promise to a girl. I told her that when she woke up, I would let her see that humans and soul beasts would no longer kill each other, and that they would coexist peacefully. I'm ashamed to say that I was just bragging at that time. Later on, I had no choice but to fulfill my bragging." Hearing this, everyone was stunned and then couldn't help but laugh. "Who is this girl?" Xiao Xiao said with an envious look. "Is she teacher's lover? She should be very beautiful, right? Otherwise, why would teacher make such an unbelievable promise to a girl? This girl isn't human, right?" Wang Dong was unusually sensitive. "Is she a soul beast? Did teacher make such a promise because of this reason? My God, if that's really the case, doesn't that mean teacher and a soul beast? How can this be?" The rest of the people fell silent. Actually, soul beasts are living beings too. Hikaitu hesitated for a moment. "The more I interact with amethyst rhinos, the more I can feel the greatness of life. Soul beasts are the same as me, they're living beings. Even if they fall in love, this isn't unacceptable. Furthermore, teacher really did create a soul contractor. He's really fulfilling this promise." "I think so too." Xiao Xiao nodded. "I heard that those 100,000-year soul beasts can transform into humans. They're no different from us humans. Furthermore, wasn't Ancestor Tang San's wife a soul beast? Oh, then it's fine." Wang Dong was stunned, then nodded. Everyone. At this moment, on the stage, the laughter gradually disappeared. Wang Feng was a little emotional, because what he'd said was the truth. It was true that he had made a promise to the Snow Empress back then, and that was why he had thought of the perfect solution to the problem of becoming a soul contractor during his 10,000 years of comprehension. His inspiration had naturally come from a certain anime from his previous life, Pokemon. Hence, Wang Feng was a little curious as to whether the Snow Empress had woken up or not. Wang Feng hoped that she hadn't woken up. If she did, she'd say, the world hasn't changed? She must be lying to me, right?" Wang Feng felt that it was too embarrassing. If he couldn't even fulfill a promise to a woman, he'd be too low. As he thought about this, Wang Feng looked at everyone again and continued. "Although solving this ancient problem wasn't my original intention, it was my ultimate goal in creating a soul contractor. I've said before that soul masters are the crystallization of the wisdom of our ancestors, but they can't keep up with the times. Things that can't keep up with the times need to change and improve, and not remain stagnant. Otherwise, soul masters will disappear from the stage of history sooner or later." Wang Feng smiled. After pausing for a few seconds, his voice resounded throughout the entire arena. "Hence, I'll explain to you in detail what a soul contractor is." The entire city became solemn. As Wang Feng spoke, the emotions and curiosity in their hearts slowly rose. This lesson, which was enough to be recorded in the annals of history, had reached its climax. P.S. Cough cough, due to limited exemptions, I'll only update 6 times for now. I'll update 10 times on the 25th. Chapter 1181. What's a Soul Contract Master? When Wang Feng said these words, everyone present stared at Wang Feng without blinking. Even Hui Yuhao's group was the same. They had been soul contract masters for some time, but after a deeper understanding, they realized that soul contract masters were not as simple as they had thought. It was impossible to explain in a few sentences. Contract refers to a life soul contract, a contract that can connect soul masters and soul beasts. It's also the core of a soul contract master. Wang Feng looked into the distance. A soul contract master is a cultivation method that allows soul masters and soul beasts to grow and improve together after forming a contract. This includes the nurturing of soul beasts, the choice of soul beasts, the interaction between soul beasts, and so on. Let's talk about the advantages of a soul contract master. Wang Feng went straight to the point. The core is that soul beasts will not die, and the soul contract master can continue to live without being restricted by soul rings. Secondly, from what you can see, soul masters will have more support, and their individual strength will increase greatly, and their safety will be guaranteed. However, this is only the advantage that you can see. Wang Feng looked at Mu'en and the others in the air. Then in reality, what other advantages are there? Wang Feng looked at the student who had mentioned Darlin's soul beast evolution theory. You said that 1,000 years ago, a scholar from Darlin researched soul beasts cultivation. The weakest soul beast at birth would normally need close to 10 years to cultivate to 10 years of cultivation. 100 years of cultivation would need close to 90 years, and 1,000 years of cultivation would need at least 700 years. This theory was obviously to comfort Darlin, and it had been tested and researched. Actually, this conclusion was very interesting. A newborn soul beast would need 10 years to cultivate to 10 years of cultivation, 90 years to cultivate to 100 years of cultivation, and 700 years to cultivate to 1,000 years of cultivation. Wang Feng asked, "Why are you like this? Is the cultivation of soul beasts really getting shorter in this world?" That student nodded. According to Darlin's theory of soul beast evolution, he believed that newborn soul beasts have low intelligence, and are only 1 or 2 years old. They don't know how to cultivate at all, so they can only rely on their bodies to cultivate and absorb the origin energy of heaven and earth. They won't take the initiative to cultivate, so 10 years of cultivation will take 10 years. Later on, as they slowly grow, after a few decades, their intelligence will become slightly higher, and their cultivation speed will also increase. They will no longer rely on their body's instincts to cultivate. With autonomy, their cultivation speed will increase. Therefore, 100 years of cultivation would only require 90 years. After reaching 100 years, their intelligence will be equivalent to that of a 3 or 4-year-old human, and their cultivation speed will increase again. As the soul beasts grow older, their cultivation speed will increase before they reach the 10,000-year level. Therefore, 1,000 years of cultivation only requires 700 years, and 10,000 years of cultivation only requires a few thousand years. This conclusion from Darren's research was rather scientific. This was the case for most soul beasts. That's right, that's it. 10,000 years ago, the cultivation speed of soul beasts was affected by their intelligence. Wang Feng slowly said, "The bodies of soul beasts are stronger than us humans. They can withstand more energy of heaven and earth, but their intelligence hinders their cultivation. The lifespan of soul beasts is dozens of times that of humans, so their growth period is very slow. This indirectly makes it very difficult for them to develop their intelligence. Therefore, the cultivation speed of soul beasts increased 10,000 years ago, but it was still very slow. Compared to humans who awaken their martial souls at the age of 6 and can cultivate before that, the difference is too great. The intelligence of normal 10,000-year soul beasts is only equivalent to that of a 10-year-old human. Only high-tier 10,000-year soul beasts that are close to 100,000 years of cultivation can have intelligence comparable to that of a human. But how many 100,000-year soul beasts are there? Intelligence was the key to a soul beast's cultivation. Long Xie had the body of a crag dragon, so why was his cultivation speed so fast? Most importantly, his soul was that of a million-year soul beast that had cultivated for countless years. Due to its rich cultivation experience, the rock dragon's aptitude was not high, but with Wang Feng's essence blood, it was different. The crag dragon's aptitude was increased, and with Long Xie's spirit, his cultivation speed was like a rocket. The rules of the life-soul contract require the soul master to give a portion of his or her spiritual power and essence blood to the soul beast so that the soul beast can develop its intelligence. Wang Feng explained the core rules. As soon as these words were spoken, sure enough, the entire place suddenly became silent. Spiritual power was related to a soul master's soul, and there was very little research on it. This was because it was very easy to kill someone. No one expected the life-soul contract to be related to a human's soul. They also didn't expect the life-soul contract to give a soul beast intelligence in such a way. The lifespan of a soul master and a soul beast are completely different. Once they become partners, the soul beast's cultivation speed is destined to be slower than the soul master's. But it's different for a soul beast with intelligence. Wang Feng smiled. At the same time, the soul master can use his or her soul beast's cultivation experience to nurture and cultivate the soul beast. This will greatly increase the soul beast's cultivation speed. Under such circumstances, the soul beast's cultivation speed will be able to keep up with the soul master's. This will prevent the gap between the two of them from widening. Everyone fell silent, as if trying to digest the shock brought by this rule. After a long while, a student stood up and asked, "Teacher, wouldn't that be too bad for us soul masters? Whether it's spiritual power or essence blood, especially the former, it can easily affect one's body. For example, what kind of flaw will it cause? A defect in the soul or a defect in the body?" Good question. Wang Feng nodded. If it's just a one-sided gift of spiritual power and essence blood, we soul masters will indeed have various defects. How could a human's spiritual power be given to others so casually? Normally, if a normal soul master's soul was injured, they would need to recuperate for several months and might not be able to recover. If it was serious, it would be troublesome. Anything was possible. But this isn't one-sided. Wang Feng said slowly, "The life-soul contract is equal. A soul beast and a human form a partnership. No one is the master. Both parties must accept it. Life is conscious. Therefore, in the life-soul contract, when we give a part of our spiritual power and essence blood to the soul beast, the soul master will also give the soul master a lifespan. Soul beasts also have to give us their lifespan, which is the power of life and the power of their soul rings." Hearing this, everyone's eyes lit up. "Life force?" that student asked curiously. "That's right," Wang Feng said calmly. "The life force given by the soul beast can increase a soul master's aptitude, which is the innate soul power level. Of course, we can't rule out the possibility that this life force can cause the martial soul to mutate and become stronger." End of chapter. Chapter 1182. Aptitude. Innate soul power level. These words shocked everyone once again. Innate soul power level was the most direct manifestation of a soul master's aptitude. Currently, the only things that could increase one's innate soul power level were treasures or rare and expensive pills. Furthermore, there was a limit to the number of uses. Other than that, there was no other way. but a life soul contract could. Under the effect of a soul contract, the life energy offered by a soul beast could increase a soul master's aptitude. To a soul master, this was an unimaginable increase in strength. Actually, Huoyu Hao and the others, who were the first batch of soul charters, could already feel this clearly. It was a very simple and direct increase in cultivation speed. Furthermore, the innate soul power level determined a soul master's upper limit to a certain extent. For a soul master who only had innate soul power level 1 or 2, it would be a miracle if he could reach rank 40 in his lifetime. This is a life soul contract in midair, Mu En and the others sighed. I didn't expect soul charters to come about like this. What a life soul contract! This is equivalent to using the advantages and disadvantages of both parties to complement each other. No wonder soul charters are so strong. No wonder his soul beast could become a 10,000-year soul beast in just a few months. An ordinary 10,000-year soul beast would be at least 2,000 to 3,000 years old, according to normal cultivation. However, under the current energy tide, the cultivation speed would increase a lot, but it would be at least 1,000 years old. Although the number of soul beasts now was much more than 10,000 years ago, the number of soul masters now was several times more than 10,000 years ago. Based on your speed, if you cultivate quickly, you can become a 10,000-year soul beast within a year. Even if it was because of Long Xie's uniqueness, it was normal for other soul beasts to become 10,000-year soul beasts within 2 to 3 years. In fact, after a soul beast displayed its life energy, its lifespan would definitely decrease. However, as long as one's cultivation was higher, this loss of lifespan was nothing. It was the same for soul masters. After a soul master offered his soul power, his soul would be a little weak. However, as one's soul power level increased, one's soul would naturally become stronger. This problem would naturally be solved. If a soul master didn't increase his own rank and didn't become stronger, he would only be able to form a soul contract with a few soul beasts before his soul became too weak and he died. There was a balance. This was the rule of the life soul contract. Naturally, Wang Feng wouldn't hide it. But in comparison, the crowd didn't care at all. This was because the ability granted by the life soul contract was simply too powerful. Let's talk about soul rings. This is the second advantage of the life soul contract and the core of it, Wang Feng continued. With that, Wang Feng unleashed his soul ring. 2 black soul rings of the exact same color. However, it had far exceeded the age limit of the first and second soul rings since the establishment of the Federation. Those who know me know that 4 months ago, when I first came here, my soul ring was light purple. Wang Feng said slowly. Therefore, the second core of a life soul contract is the ability to upgrade soul rings. Soul rings are no longer of a fixed color and rank. Instead, they will change as the soul-bonded beast grows. As soon as he said this, in an instant the entire square fell silent. Almost everyone couldn't help but have the same thought. An epoch-making change. It was truly epoch-making. What did a soul ring mean? Wang Feng had already said at the beginning that soul rings were the most important thing to a soul master. Not only could it allow a soul master to break through, but it was also the representation and symbol of strength. A soul emperor with 600,000-year soul rings was even stronger than a titled Douluo with 9-10,000-year soul rings. This was the foundation of soul masters challenging those of a higher rank. Of course, in reality, other than those few ancestors and a handful of legendary figures in the past 10,000 years, basically no one had more than 500,000-year soul rings. But now, the ability to upgrade soul rings would definitely change this era. What would change was the strength of soul masters on the continent. The ability to upgrade soul rings? This core shocked Mu En and the others. This was something they didn't expect. It was too exaggerated. How difficult was it to upgrade soul rings? For normal soul masters, it was basically impossible to upgrade them. Mu-En and the elders of the Sea God Pavilion all knew what this meant. If that's the case, then the strength of soul masters in the future will definitely increase greatly. Facing the dark demon world, it's not impossible to resist. Xian Zi's face was filled with disbelief. This core rule is too frightening, it's even more exaggerated than before. Yan Xiaozhe was also deeply shocked. This is the reason why his first and second soul rings are 10,000-year soul rings, right? Qian Duoduo thought. Those kids are so strong, especially Hui Yuhao. His soul rings have been getting stronger. Yesterday, when he was in the combat team, his soul rings were already purple. Soul rings meant that they could increase a soul master's physical strength and abilities in all aspects. It wasn't just a soul ring that could allow a soul master to break through a realm. As soul rings continued to upgrade, a soul master's abilities in all aspects would also increase. This was why a soul emperor with 600,000-year soul rings was stronger than a 9-ringed titled Doulu. A soul contract master is a profession where soul masters and soul beasts grow together. This is what I'm referring to when I say they grow together. It doesn't just mean an increase in strength. Wang Feng continued, after signing a life soul contract, soul beasts will automatically give us soul rings. Soul rings are the power of soul beasts. The power of soul beasts comes from their soul rings. Therefore, after signing a life soul contract, soul beasts are closely related to us. The ability to upgrade soul rings is also a sign of a soul beast's growth. 100 years, 1,000 years, 10,000 years, even 100,000 years. This sense of immersion and accomplishment wasn't just from killing soul beasts to obtain soul rings. At the same time, soul beasts who sign a life soul contract can give us a second soul ring after reaching 10,000 years of cultivation. Wang Feng pointed to his soul rings and said, "My soul beast is a little special. It can give me a second soul ring after reaching 10,000 years. Normally, soul beasts can give us a second soul ring between 50,000 and 90,000 years. This depends on how compatible the soul beast is with the soul master. If the life soul contract reaches 100,000 years, it can give us a third soul ring. Therefore, in theory, a soul contractor would only need 4 to 5 soul beasts, and that would be enough. In theory, if one wanted to become a god, for soul beasts were naturally insufficient. Wang Feng pondered. In fact, he had long considered the possibility of a soul charmer becoming a god. End of chapter. Chapter 1183. Take himself as an example. In the subsequent thinking of the soul contractor, Wang Feng thought of cultivating to become a god without relying on the god's position. Because every soul contractor was very powerful when they cultivated to rank 90, they naturally didn't need to rely on the god's position. They could reach rank 100 and become a god through their own strength and the strength of their soul contracted beast. Of course, Wang Feng didn't plan to say this now. It was too broad. 4 to 5 soul beasts, in fact, wouldn't be in short supply in the current Douluo world, because the number of soul beasts now was more than that of humans, although it wasn't much more because of the evil soul beasts. In this way, we can solve the problem of obtaining soul rings. Mu-En pondered, the dark demon realm is eyeing us covetously. We humans only need to borrow this for 10 years, then it's not impossible to resist the dark demon realm. Mu-En's thinking was too simple, or rather, he underestimated the dark demon realm. At least, that was what Wang Feng thought. Once a soul beast grew to 100,000 years, it could give the soul master at least 3 soul rings, but it wasn't so easy to cultivate a 100,000-year soul ring. According to Wang Feng's estimation, it would take at most a few decades. Note that it was possible. Therefore, most of them were 10,000-year soul beasts, and 10,000-year soul beasts could give the soul master 2 soul rings. It was indeed a solution to the difficulty of obtaining soul rings in the next few years when the evil soul beasts erupted. No wonder he said that I only saw the first level. Muen suddenly laughed. He's right, I only saw the first level. I never thought that this soul contractor would have such a core rule and advantage. It's time for soul masters to be eliminated. We old guys might be the last batch of soul masters in this era. Muen had a smile on his face. He looked a little old, a little emotional, and a little gratified. At the same time, all the audience present were immersed in Wang Feng's tireless speech. At the same time, the third core of the life-soul contract. However, Wang Feng still hadn't finished speaking. Everyone was shocked. There's more? Didn't anyone think of it? Wang Feng looked at everyone and couldn't help but laugh. Let me ask you, when a soul beast cultivates from 1,000 years to 10,000 years, won't there be any changes? Of course. Everyone answered in their hearts. For normal soul beasts, even within 1,000 years, there would be great changes in their cultivation, body size, appearance, form, and abilities, let alone from 1,000 years to 10,000 years. He seemed to have heard the answer in everyone's hearts. Wang Feng nodded slightly. That's right. Soul beasts undergo all sorts of changes as they cultivate, and after becoming a soul-bonding beast, because it has the intelligence and blood essence of us humans. Furthermore, the relationship between them and us soul masters has only deepened over time. Let me ask you, do you understand the power of emotions? Wang Feng's words were actually a little unreliable. From a soul master's point of view, the power of emotions involved the secretion of various elements within the body, allowing soul masters to unleash a certain kind of superpower. We have to understand that soul beasts are living beings. Wang Feng slowly said, nature has given life to soul beasts. They are life forms that can evolve and grow, just like us humans. We humans change because of our emotions. There are no heartless people in this world. Because of our emotions, we are humans, and only then can we dominate this world. Soul beasts are also a type of life form. When they gain sentience, they will have emotions in advance. The power of emotions will cause them to change. This change is the evolution of soul beasts. It is also the third core of life-soul contracts. Wang Feng glanced at everyone. 1,000 years ago, scholar Dalu researched the theory of soul beast evolution. The core idea was that soul beasts would change with time due to environmental and other factors. Changes would occur imperceptibly. Just like the mandala snake 10,000 years ago, there will be a huge difference between it and the mandala snake 10,000 years later. At the same time, there will be many branches, such as the black graceful snake, the rune snake, and so on. And the evolution of soul beasts in life-soul contracts is a type of change that originates from the feelings between soul beasts and soul masters, as well as the rapid increase in strength. The evolution of soul beasts means that the soul beasts will reach a higher level of life. Soul beasts will have a qualitative improvement in all aspects. Their strength and intelligence will all increase. Some soul beasts with special bloodlines will even undergo changes due to the hidden power in their bloodlines. But the evolution of soul beasts is relatively rare. Under normal circumstances, the first evolution will occur around 10,000 years. This is because it takes at least a few years to nurture a soul beast to 10,000 years. Only with such a long time will the feelings between soul masters and soul beasts be deep enough to affect the soul beast. The second evolution is even more difficult, around 100,000 years. Although evolution was difficult, the improvement was huge. Long Xie was a good example. After 10,000 years, part of the bloodline in his body was activated. He even grew wings and had the aura of a true dragon. True dragon bloodline. If Long Xie evolved a second time in 100,000 years, he would be even stronger. There was an example. Qilin Lord Bingmu would not evolve. This was because its current life form was already at the top of the world. It was equivalent to a divine beast in Pokemon. Therefore, Qilin Lord Bingmu's strength was far beyond normal knowledge. In fact, soul beasts could evolve a third time, 1,000,000 years. This meant that after becoming a god, they would evolve again. But that situation was too rare. Wang Feng felt that there was no need to say it. He would let them explore it on their own. As expected, the evolution of soul beasts shocked everyone again. Wang Feng's explanation was also very clear, and everyone present understood. Wang Feng called Long Xie out. Long Xie, shout twice, Wang Feng said. Long Xie. Forced by Wang Feng's abuse of power, Long Xie could only shout twice. The majestic dragon roar resounded throughout the square. After Long Xie's first evolution, no one would think that he was still a rock dragon. This was evolution. It was a change in life form. It was not just a change in body shape and appearance. More changes were in the soul beast's aptitude and abilities. The evolution of soul beasts was the same as the upgrade of soul rings. It was an epoch-making change. Many people were limited by their knowledge and didn't know what it meant. In comparison, the upgrade of soul rings made them feel more empathetic. When there were more and more soul charmers in the future, they would naturally understand the benefits of soul beasts' evolution. Soul beasts' evolution, Mu En and the others muttered. They were the strongest people in this world. They naturally knew what it meant. The future of soul beasts would be greatly changed. In comparison, soul beasts would gain more benefit. End of chapter. Chapter 1184. This life-soul contract is really an equal contract. Xianzi pondered and said, these three cores are closely related to soul masters and soul beasts, and they don't favor any side. The aptitude of soul masters increases, and the soul beasts also gain intelligence. The soul rings of soul masters have the ability to grow, and the soul beasts also have the ability to evolve. Every core rule is very reasonable. This person is really talented. I really wonder if he is a god that descended to the mortal realm. Other than a god, who could create a life-soul contract. Was it possible for a human to figure out the key points in this? No, even if he could figure it out, what kind of power did he have to be able to create such a life-soul contract? They wouldn't understand that this involved the power of the rules of the world. One had to know that this life-soul contract was comprehended by Wang Feng from the law of life. It wasn't something that could be created just by thinking about it. Wang Feng naturally wouldn't tell anyone about this. These are the three cores of the life-soul contract: two-way bestowment, soul ring upgrade, and soul beast evolution. Under these three cores there are many interesting points. I won't tell you all about this. After everyone has become a soul contract master, you will slowly understand and discover it. Wang Feng said with a smile. The life-soul contract contained the origin rules. Although it wouldn't change, different people and different soul beasts, once they meet, what kind of chemical reaction would occur? Wang Feng didn't dare to say that it was absolute. It might be created slowly. After talking about these three cores, let's talk about three key points. First, the most important point is that soul masters and soul beasts are equal and partners. Maybe different soul beasts have different effects, but remember, they are always equal. The two can't attack each other. Once they do, it will trigger the life-soul contract's backlash. If it's light, it will automatically cancel the soul contract, and if it's heavy, both sides will be seriously injured. In the battle yesterday, Xiao Zhao's Diamond Dragonhawk was about to attack Xiao Xiao, but it stopped because of Xiao Zhao's flute. This is one of the reasons. The second key point, remember, the life-soul contract requires soul power. Remember, don't bite off more than you can chew. Low-level soul masters can't bear more than 3 soul contract beasts, at most 2. Otherwise, their soul will be seriously injured. He could consider 4 mid-level soul masters, and 5 or more high-level soul masters. A soul beast's soul ring couldn't be directly absorbed after signing a soul contract. Instead, it depended on one's rank. Therefore, you can sign a contract with a soul beast in advance and nurture it in advance. The third key point is that the life-soul contract doesn't have any restrictions. Under normal circumstances, it won't change. But everything is not the same. These three key points were easy to understand, but they were also taboo points that Wang Feng mentioned. There were also some things that would make most people very puzzled. They were all here. It was worth pondering over. At this moment, a teacher from the inner court suddenly stood up and said, "Teacher Wang, I have a question. If a high-level soul master wanted to find a soul-bond beast, he wouldn't want to find a 10 or 100-year soul beast to cultivate from scratch. Instead, he would look for a 10,000-year soul beast to cultivate. Soul beasts that are over 10,000 years old have already gained intelligence, so they basically won't accept humans." This question had hit the nail on the head. If it was in the future, such a problem would not occur, because at that time they would all be soul renters. But now it was very troublesome. How to target a high-level soul master, find a soul-bond beast, and obtain the soul beast's approval. Generally, 100 or 10-year soul beasts that had yet to gain intelligence were very easy to befriend. In addition, the life-soul contract was very helpful to them, so they could basically sign it successfully. But what about high-level soul beasts? Not to mention 100,000-year soul beasts. The life-soul contract had less effect on tens of thousands of year soul beasts. They might not regret it. What was attractive to them might be the evolution of the soul beast, as well as the nurturing and cultivation speed of the soul master. But this wasn't enough to make those high-level soul beasts truly become partners with humans. It could only be said that there was a certain level of attraction. On this point, many teachers were more concerned about it, because they were all mid-level and high-level soul masters. If they were to find 100 or 1,000-year soul beast to nurture now, their strength would be greatly reduced in the next few years. The reason why this situation wouldn't happen in the future was because there wouldn't be any soul masters by then, but it was different now. High-level soul masters, especially soul beasts that were rank 70 and above, needed 80 to 90,000 years. If they were to choose a 10 or 100-year soul beast and slowly waste their time nurturing it for a few years, wouldn't they fall behind by a large margin? If they were to find a high-level soul beast, it would be too difficult. It wasn't easy to get a soul beast of that level to acknowledge a human. This is a very good question. Wang Feng smiled. So, I'll tell you the ultimate rule of the life-soul contract that you might not be able to understand. According to my expectations, soul beasts that sign a life-soul contract with a soul master don't need to undergo a heavenly tribulation. Hearing this, most of the students were at a loss. But only the teacher's expressions changed greatly. An intense change. Astonishment appeared on every teacher's face. Fuck. Life-soul contracts have such an effect? The Skydream Iceworm, who was on Huiyuhao, couldn't help but be shocked. Boss hit it really well. How is this possible? Soul beasts don't need to undergo a heavenly tribulation. What's a heavenly tribulation? Is it very exaggerated? Huiyuhao asked curiously. This can no longer be described as exaggerated. The Skydream Iceworm's voice was trembling. The heavenly tribulation is a punishment from the heavens for us soul beasts who want to break through our shackles. Any soul beast that wants to become a 100,000-year soul beast has to undergo a heavenly tribulation in order to succeed. Do you know how many soul beasts have been stopped at this threshold since ancient times? How many soul beasts are unable to take this step in their entire lives? This is so unfair, Huiyuhao subconsciously said. He didn't know much about the heavenly tribulation. At this moment, because he had two soul-bound beasts, he naturally stood on the side of soul beast. Therefore, he felt that it was very unfair. If it was in the past, Huiyuhao wouldn't have had such thoughts after knowing that soul beasts had to undergo a heavenly tribulation. It's not just unfair. the Skydream Iceworm said angrily. After 100,000 years, we will undergo a heavenly tribulation every 100,000 years. Every time, it's a life and death tribulation. Otherwise, why do you think some soul beasts have no choice but to transform into humans and cultivate again? The wife of one of your Tang sex ancestors, Tang San, was like this. Huoyu Hao was silent. We soul beasts are restricted by this point. At the 100,000-year level, it's a threshold. Under the heavenly tribulation, once we can't withstand it, we will turn into dust. End of chapter. Chapter 1185. The Skydream Iceworm sighed. If a life-soul contract had such a heaven-defying ability, it could allow a soul-carving beast to avoid the heavenly tribulation. Even those extremely intelligent high-tier soul beasts would be willing to accept any human, because this is the most useful point for them. Especially those 80 to 90,000 year soul beasts. They might even take the initiative to form a life-soul contract with a human expert. Logically speaking, I feel that this change is even more exaggerated than the previous 3 cores. The Skydream Iceworm felt that this was too terrifying. This life-soul contract was equivalent to changing the rules. This definitely wasn't something a single person could create. Even a god might not be able to create it, because the heavenly tribulation itself represented the rules of the world. Who set the rules of the world? The Skydream Iceworm didn't know, but he felt that it was definitely related to the gods. Who exactly is this boss? The Skydream Iceworm broke out in cold sweat. As a soul beast, he knew what this rule meant. In fact, this was indeed the case. After many of the Academy's teachers knew about this, their first reaction was that those high-tier soul beasts would fight to become soul-carving beasts. As teachers, they naturally knew what the heavenly tribulation of soul beasts meant. It was a death sentence handed down by the heavens. Many powerful soul beasts would lose their lives, especially during the crucial period between 80,000 and 90,000 years. This was because they had to cross the 100,000-year threshold during this period. With the powerful ability of a life-soul contract to avoid the heavenly tribulation, it meant that they could easily cross this threshold. Many teachers were extremely excited. Unlike the students, most of the students couldn't feel how powerful this rule was. However, they, as mid-tier and high-tier soul beasts, could feel how powerful it was. This meant that they could also become soul contract masters. Furthermore, from a long-term perspective, every soul contract master could nurture a soul beast to a 100,000-year soul beast without being threatened by the heavenly tribulation. It was filled with endless possibilities. What you're saying is expected. In other words, it doesn't exist? Mu En and the others flew down from the sky. They seemed to be unable to sit still. This point could be said to be enough for them to deify this life-soul contract. No, it exists. Wang Feng shook his head. It's just that I can't give you an example. Because I don't have a 100,000-year soul beast here, and I haven't met a soul beast that's undergoing a heavenly tribulation, I can't give you an example. You can try it yourselves. Soul beasts of this rank possess extremely high intelligence. Some soul beasts don't have the confidence to cross the 100,000-year threshold and don't dare to take that step. Therefore, they will not give up on any hope of survival. As long as there is an example, it will be enough. There weren't that many coincidences and examples, but Wang Feng could accurately say that he could avoid the soul beast's heavenly tribulations. However, it was very difficult for Wang Feng to explain this rule to them. However, could it be that being a soul charmer is an occupation recognized by the heavens? One of the elders couldn't help but exclaim in shock. Only by obtaining any of the occupations of the heavens can the heavenly tribulations of the soul beasts disappear. Isn't the heavenly tribulation a punishment given by the heavens to the soul beast? But if one becomes a soul contractor and the heavenly tribulation disappears, doesn't that mean that one has gained the approval of the heavens? That's right, that's right. I think so too. Another elder nodded. Heaven's approval, Mu-en was stunned. He knew that there were gods in this world. The punishment from the heavens represented the rules of the gods. Could it be that this soul charmer was really recognized by the heavens? That's why such a situation occurred? Soul charmers were the way out of this world? And the only way to resist the dark demon world? Somehow, the elders led by Mu-en all agreed with this idea. Wang Feng didn't expect them to think this way. Needless to say, there was some truth in it. Cough cough. You can think of it this way. Wang Feng glanced at Mu-en and the others. Anyway, it was fine as long as they could understand. Basically, I've said everything I need to say about soul charmers. At this moment, Wang Feng looked at the students present. 3 core rules, 3 key points, and 1 ultimate rule. The life-soul contract wasn't perfect. There was nothing truly perfect in this world. Wang Feng said that the life-soul contract didn't have any restrictions. It had the possibility of change. Different soul masters and soul beasts could have different changes when they formed the life-soul contract. That was full of possibilities. In the long river of history in the future, soul charmers would develop and evolve along with human history. However, Wang Feng knew that the 3 core rules he had mentioned today would not change, because this was the core of a soul charmer. Following Wang Feng's words, the huge square fell silent. Many light image soul tools also recorded this moment. In these few hours of introduction, except for the last ultimate rule, key examples could be found in yesterday's battle. Naturally, there was no falsehood. So, after Wang Feng finished speaking, Wang Feng could see only admiration and shock in the eyes of the students and teachers present. It made Wang Feng feel like he was in the business of spreading knowledge. However, Wang Feng believed that this lesson would be spread to the entire continent in the future. As for how strong the spread would be, he didn't dare to say, because the Shrek Academy couldn't represent the entire Federation. But the role of soul charmers would be valued by the entire continent. Next, I will briefly talk about soul contracting beasts. I will point the way for you who will become soul charmers in the future. Wang Feng continued with a smile. First of all, we have to understand that soul contracting beasts, especially the first one, are especially important. We soul masters, no matter what kind of soul master we are, have strengths and weaknesses. And soul contracting beasts are very helpful to us. Therefore, the role of soul contracting beasts to us can be best described in 8 ways. Learn from each other's strengths to make up for our weaknesses, find our weaknesses and fill in our weaknesses. Note, what I'm talking about is the first soul contracting beast. It's very simple, whatever we lack, we fill in. Assistance type, control type, but lacking in defense, we fill in the defense. Lacking in offense, we fill in the offense. We have to try our best to let soul contracting beasts fill in our shortcomings, our weaknesses. I'm sure you all have seen the previous 4 battles. Why did they win? The reason is very simple. The 4 people sent by the Northern Harmony Academy were specifically targeted at the weaknesses of the 4. But the soul contracting beast made up for their weaknesses, so they were able to counter the enemy and win. When everyone heard this, they were enlightened. So that's how it is. Actually, many people had already seen through it. As for the second and third soul beasts, they can be chosen according to their own attributes, there are no requirements. But the first soul beast must make up for its own weaknesses. Only in this way can the soul charmer's strength be increased to the greatest extent. Wang Feng said slowly, at this point it's time for this class to end, P.S. There will be more tomorrow. Chapter 1186. The lesson ended. To everyone present, this was an unforgettable lesson. The origin of soul contractors could be considered to have truly begun from this class. After this, Wang Feng explained the contents of the life-soul contract to Mu En and the rest. The life-soul contract contained the seal diagram and the incantation of the soul oath. They all contained special rules. It wasn't complicated. What was complicated was understanding the mysteries within. This had to be done with the soul beast before a complete soul contract could be formed. After doing all this, Wang Feng planned to head to the extreme north to take a look and cultivate for a period of time. Do we need to create a new department? Elder Xian asked. No, because soul engineers and soul masters will all become soul charters. Mu En shook his head. In the future, the Academy will focus on soul charters. Since he settled the Purple Maple Soul Beast Forest, he will focus on the Purple Maple Soul Beast Forest. Soul charters don't need powerful soul beasts in the beginning. For most students, 100 years is enough. Within a year, we will see result. In fact, as time passed, one could choose their first soul beast before the age of 10. Before reaching class 10, it wouldn't be difficult to nurture a 1,000-year soul beast. It was just that soul charters had just been developed, and weren't popularized yet. As for intermediate and advanced soul masters, they can focus on the Purple Maple Soul Beast Forest and look for 1,000-year or 10,000-year soul beasts. In the future, our Shrek Academy can set a new rule. Mu En stood on the stage and said to all the students and teachers, no student or teacher is allowed to harm soul beasts. Unless they are attacked by soul beasts, they should try not to kill soul beasts. Mu En's rule was equivalent to fully recognizing the soul renderer. No one had any objections to this rule. Wang Feng smiled and nodded. When he explained everything clearly, anyone would know what to do. Not to mention the elders of the Sea Gods Pavilion. Shrek Academy was a traditional academy, and the other academies would definitely follow suit in the future if they were able to achieve this. They just needed an opportunity. I hope that when I return to the academy, I can see that all of you have become soul charters, and that all of you have your own soul beast. Your abilities will also be far greater than now. Wang Feng finally said. He looked at everyone and could see the desire and hope in their eyes. Wang Feng had no idea how profound the light he was emitting was. When Wang Feng walked off the stage, the audience was still silent. It was as if he was still savoring the aftertaste. So, do you know why I said amethyst rhino? Hikaitu looked towards Susanha. Susanha nodded. In this situation, I should find a soul beast that is more inclined towards offense. That's right. Hikaitu nodded and sighed. It's a pity that Teacher Wang is about to leave the academy. The four of us are the only soul contractors who have received guidance from Teacher Wang. Sir, are you planning to leave the academy? After Wang Feng walked down the stage, Mu En and the others walked over. Obviously, from the words just now, they could tell that Wang Feng was planning to leave the academy. This was something they had not expected. Initially, he thought that the other party would continue to stay in the academy and nurture more soul charmers. Yes, it's time for me to leave this place. Wang Feng looked into the distance. Let's go to the extreme north. Extreme north? Mu En's expression changed slightly. That place is a little complicated now. Oh, Wang Feng thought for a moment. Is it because of the evil soul beasts? That's right. Mu En nodded slightly. I told you before that little Xian and I were invited to join forces with the 6 great Douluo heavenly kings to suppress the dark demon race in a soul beast forest in the north. That soul beast forest in the north is one of the outer regions of the extreme north. Although those creatures from the dark demon world were killed by us, there must be an even bigger outbreak of evil soul beasts in the inner regions of the extreme north. When we left, the Federation had already sealed the border at the back. No humans are allowed to leave the north as they wish. There's such a thing. Wang Feng was surprised. Yes, the extreme north has always had a good relationship with the Federation. Heavenly King Nine Phoenix, one of the 3 honorary Douluo heavenly kings, is one of them. She is the hope of the soul beasts in the extreme north and the leader in name. Among the 7 overlords of the extreme north, the weakest one has a cultivation of 340,000 years. They are very powerful. Mu-En sighed. There are many soul beasts in the extreme north. There are countless 100,000-year soul beasts, even more so than in the great star Do forest. However, the eggs left behind by the evil soul beasts are the most. The eggs of these evil soul beasts are very adaptable. Even in the extreme north's extreme temperature, they can still be bred secretly. I heard that the outbreak of the evil soul beasts this time appeared in the inner regions of the extreme north. It was only suppressed very quickly. However, the situation inside is very complicated now. In order to investigate the situation inside, the Federation sent out 3 Douluo heavenly kings, leading at least 50 high-level soul masters to the extreme north to investigate the specific situation. At this point, Mu-En paused. Wang Feng frowned slightly. This was the first time he had heard of this matter. 4,000 years ago, the 2 continents collided, causing the extreme north to expand again. The number and types of soul beasts also increased rapidly. The current scale was so large that it could only be stronger than the great star Do forest. In addition, it was the only place that maintained a good relationship with humans. Once an evil soul beast outbreak appeared in the extreme north, humans would definitely be in extreme danger. Hence, after dealing with the dark demon race in the northern soul beast forest, the Federation immediately sent people to the inner regions of the extreme north to investigate the situation. This was to prevent any accident. The Heavenly King of Waterluster, who focuses on healing and control, the Heavenly King of Giant Spirit, who focuses on defense, and the Heavenly King of Tyrannical Spear, who focuses on explosive attacks. These 3 people come from 3 different political districts, and they are leading teams to the extreme north. However, there hasn't been any news yet. Mu-En explained in detail to Wang Feng. Hence, the Federation has temporarily sealed the northern border and sent a large number of soldiers to guard it. Before these 3 people return, the northern border won't be opened. If you go to the extreme north now, it will be very dangerous. Mu-En wanted to persuade Wang Feng to stay. This was why he was so detailed. All the more reason for me to go and take a look. Wang Feng nodded after listening. Logically speaking, with Shaoqing and the others' current strength, they might not be able to deal with those monsters in the Dark Demon realm. How dangerous would it be if a situation like Spirit Link appeared? He had to go and take a look. Wang Feng also needed to know about the Snow Empress situation. End of chapter. Chapter 1187. Mu-En. Cough cough. Well, since that's the case, we shouldn't keep you here. Xian Zi sighed. But if you want to go to the extreme north, you need to obtain a pass to the back border. Otherwise, it will be very troublesome. This pass is only issued by the Central Martial Spirit Palace. Otherwise, you will be stopped. We can apply to the Central Martial Spirit Palace in the name of the Shrek Academy. It will take a month. Too long. Wang Feng shook his head. You don't need a month. You can go to the northern border with us if you really want to go to the extreme north. At this moment, a voice sounded from afar. The person who spoke was dressed in black and had a cold expression. It was the black-clothed referee from yesterday. He was also one of the people from the inspection department who had come to the academy. Deacon Yuan? Mu-En looked at him and frowned slightly. Elder Mu. The black-clothed referee from yesterday nodded. I am Yuan Hong from the inspection department. If you want to go to the extreme north, you can go with us. As the investigation team led by the 3 great Douluo Heavenly Kings hasn't returned, our inspection department plans to send another team into the inner circle of the extreme north to see the situation. I'm planning to enter the extreme north. Yuan Hong had a smile on his face. I also listened to the lesson just now. Yuan Hong smiled. To be honest, it was shocking. If it didn't happen in front of my eyes, I wouldn't dare to believe that someone could create such a magical cultivation method. Initially, I was invited here to investigate the matter of soul contractors, but after hearing the story, even I want to become a soul contractor. He was yesterday's referee, so he had a clear view of all the fights yesterday. Naturally, he could feel the strength of a soul contractor more directly, and the truth of every word that Wang Feng said. Wang Feng looked at him. This Yuan Hong should be in his 60s, but he looked like a middle-aged man in his 40s. A titled Douluo should be around 92 to 93. Deacon was the title of the inspection department. Since yesterday, Wang Feng had discovered the other party's strength. He didn't expect him to appear here now. There is no news of the 3 great Douluo heavenly kings and dozens of high-level soul masters. Is there any use for your inspection department to go now? Mu Wen asked indifferently. Ha ha, Elder Mu's words are as sharp as ever. Yuan Hong laughed heartily. That's right. Generally speaking, even if our inspection department is powerful, we're still far inferior to the investigation department led by the 3 great Douluo heavenly kings. Even if you go to the extreme north, you may not be able to guarantee that you will be able to come out. Then aren't you guys sending him to his death by inviting him along? Duo couldn't help but say. Yuan Hong's appearance at this time obviously meant that he wanted to draw Wang Feng to his side. In other words, he was also shocked by the soul renters and wanted to take this opportunity to ask Wang Feng to train some soul renters for the inspection department. Even as a seed, it was fine. That's not it. Vice Principal Qian, there's something you don't know, Yuan Hong said calmly. You must have heard of the Isia sect, right? The Isia sect was established several thousand years ago, and it was the only sect in the extreme north. It had a close relationship with the few overlords of the extreme north. After the Dark Demon Realm incident broke out in the northern Soul Beast Forest, the Isia sect was the first to suffer a devastating blow because it was the closest to the Soul Beast Forest. The Isia sect located in that Soul Beast Forest was destroyed immediately. Most of the members of the sect either went missing or died. Isia sect. Wang Fengxin's heart moved. He had heard Mu Wen mention it before. However, it was very simple. From the name, Wang Feng suspected that it was the sect that Shui Bing-er had founded. Shui Bing-er, who had inherited the position of ice god, and Ning Rongrong, the water god, were sisters. During the 100 years that he had been sealed, she had also come to visit him. After she became the ice god, she entered the god realm with Ning Rongrong. He guessed that she had founded this sect before going to the god realm and left behind an inheritance that belonged to the ice god. So what? Duo asked. There's no news of the 3 heavenly kings for now, but our inspection department found an Isia sect disciple. The Isia sect has a special passage that leads to the inner circle of the extreme north. This passage is relatively hidden and can lead directly to the inner circle of the extreme north. Yuan Hong had a confident smile on his face. It's also because of this that our inspection department has the confidence to investigate the situation in the extreme north. After hearing Yuan Hong's words, everyone fell silent. Passage. Wang Feng seemed to understand something. What do you think? Yuan Hong looked at Wang Feng. Wang Feng thought for a moment. Okay. He didn't expect the situation in the extreme north to be so complicated. The Federation had already sealed off the northern border. In fact, other than the northern border, many places in the Soul Beast Forest had already begun to be sealed off. For example, the Great Star Do Forest, which covered 3 political regions. Even if there were no outbreaks of evil soul beasts, the Federation had sent an investigation team to investigate in advance to prepare in advance. Okay, then after a few days, you can follow me to the north. Yuan Hong was overjoyed. Soul contractors would definitely spread in the future. The earlier one learned, the earlier one could enjoy. Shrek Academy was close to the water. Although their inspection department was a department of the Federation, they had a lot of power and protected the order of the soul world. Naturally, they had to understand and participate in the cultivation of soul contractors as soon as possible. In fact, Wang Feng also had this consideration. The Martial Soul Inspection Department had a very high status in the world of soul masters. In the future, if they were to set various rules for soul contractors, they would be included. In addition, they had authority and were unique in the Federation. Since that's the case, we will send you off in a few days. Mu En and the others didn't stop him. After all, Wang Feng had already made his choice. They wouldn't be tactless and stop him. In the next few days, Wang Feng made some preparations. In fact, he mainly instructed Huoyu Hao and the others. For these disciples, Wang Feng was still looking forward to their names shaking the continent in the future. 3 days later, at the entrance of Shrek Academy. "Teacher, when will you be back?" Huoyu Hao asked. "It might be a long time. At least a year, at most a few years." Wang Feng looked at them. "That's a long time?" Xiao Zhao's face was full of reluctance. "Teacher, there's still half a year before the new Continental Elite Soul Master Tournament. I still want to see teacher's handsome demeanor in the tournament." Wang Feng: "Teacher, why would you participate in that kind of tournament? When you participate, I'll come and take a look when I'm free." Wang Feng patted Xiao Zhao's head. This was the most traditional tournament in the history of the Douluo continent. It had been preserved for tens of thousands of years. It was also the most elite tournament. Chapter 1188. Why won't you participate? Wang Dong asked curiously. This tournament is the best place to spread the word about soul charlatans. This tournament covers the Sun Moon Empire and the Martial Soul Federation. All the academies, sects, and clans will participate. It's the most famous on the continent. Teacher, if you were to participate in this competition and obtain an extremely high ranking, at that time, there would be no one in the entire continent who doesn't know about the existence of soul renters. This tournament was too famous. It was so famous that even the commoners knew about it. Yes, yes. Huoyu Hao nodded. This tournament is the ultimate goal of all soul masters. Wang Feng was stunned when he heard this. In his memory, the Continental Elite Soul Master Tournament wasn't as big as this, right? You just have to participate when the time comes. After thinking for a while, Wang Feng smiled and said, "You will definitely become outstanding soul charlatans. If you become the champion, won't you be able to spread the word about soul charlatans?" "That's different." At this moment, Ma Xiaodao shook her head and said, "We're only participating in the youth division. The youth division only represents the most outstanding young soul masters on the continent, but it doesn't represent all soul masters. Little Housie said that this tournament is the ultimate goal of all soul masters, because this tournament also has the most elite soul masters fighting. The advanced division is also known as the pinnacle division." Wang Feng was a little confused. He hadn't paid attention to this tournament over the past few days, mainly because he had participated in it before. Naturally, he wasn't very interested in it. He didn't expect the Continental Elite Soul Master Tournament to have changed so much. The Advanced Division refers to the Advanced Soul Masters. Ma Xiaotao laughed softly. Only Soul Masters above rank 70 are qualified to participate. The highest is titled Dalu. It's called the Pinnacle Division because the most elite Soul Masters on the continent will compete in this tournament. Titled Douluo. Furthermore, this tournament only has an individual round. There's no team round. The Soul Master who becomes the champion of the Pinnacle Division will be crowned as the strongest person on the continent. Wang Feng understood when he heard the words strongest person on the continent. Even if the Apex group didn't have any prizes, just the title alone was enough to make countless Soul Masters scramble for it. The strongest person on the continent. Which Soul Master wouldn't want this title? If becoming a titled Douluo was the goal of every soul master, then becoming the most powerful soul master on the continent was probably the dream of every top-tier soul master. In addition, it was only an individual competition, which meant that this was a one-man stage. Interesting. Wang Feng smiled. Your teacher's soul power hasn't reached rank 70. Even after half a year, he won't be able to participate in the summit battle. Yuan Hong walked over from afar and said with a smile, however, with the concept of a soul renderer, the rules of this competition might change a little. Yuan Hong took out a special soul tool from his soul tool. He looked at the special ice-type soul beast above Wang Feng's head. Over the past few days, he had looked through many ancient books, but he couldn't find any information about this soul beast. It was an extremely rare soul beast. There was basically no record of it in the Federation. Throughout history, the competition in the Pinnacle Group has always been very intense. Yuan Hong sighed. It's not easy to obtain the title of the continent's #1 expert. The youth group competition is held once every 5 years. The Pinnacle Group competition was originally held once every 10 years, but it was later changed to once every 20 years. For a titled Douluo, there's actually very little change in 10 years. There's only an obvious change in 20 years. It's also very easy for geniuses to appear. Titled Douluo were too strong, and their soul power increased very slowly. Most titled Douluo took 10 years for each rank. The gap between each rank was also very large. Therefore, 20 years was enough for a new titled Douluo to appear. Who was the strongest person on the continent in the previous summit battle? Wang Feng suddenly asked. The strongest of the 12 Douluo heavenly kings. She's also one of the few rank 99 exceptional Douluo in the world, the Shi Douluo. Xiao Xiao raised her hand and replied, "Before teacher appeared, she was my idol. She's the current pavilion master of East Maple Academy's Spirit Mandate Pavilion, the leader of the 12 Heavenly Kings, the current leader of the Federation, and the strongest person on the continent. She has ultimate twin martial souls, and is the first person to condense ultimate yin-yang twin soul cores. She's also the only Class 9 soul engineer in the Federation, and the most talented person on the continent in the past 1,000 years. There are rumors that she's already surpassed rank 99, and she's also the idol of many soul masters on the continent." Xiao Xiao chuckled at the end. However, after teacher appeared, the Shi Douluo's position in my heart dropped from #1 to #2. Wang Feng. Impressive. Wang Feng counted all these names. Their origins could be written into a story, right? East Maple Academy's Spirit Mandate Pavilion had the same status as the Sea Gods Pavilion. As a federally established academy, second only to the Shrek Academy, East Maple Academy was naturally not simple. To become the pavilion master, the dragon god Douluo Muen had lived for more than 200 years. His experiences could also be written into a book. Being the leader of the 12 heavenly kings meant that she had the highest status in the Federation. It was easy to imagine how difficult it was to become the strongest person among the 12 heavenly kings. The current leader of the Federation meant that she had the ability to lead and was recognized. Being the strongest person on the continent meant that she had won the Pinnacle Group tournament. Naturally, this was even more difficult. An ultimate twin martial souls possessor was even more powerful. Twin martial souls were still very rare in this era. Although there were not many of them, the number of twin martial souls on the continent did not exceed 3-digit. Twin martial souls had the word ultimate in it, which meant that both martial souls were of the ultimate type. Ultimate meant that they were the strongest of their type. Generally speaking, having a martial soul with an ultimate attribute was already very impressive. It was the same for having 2 types of soul cores. The first Class 9 soul engineer in the Federation was needless to say. Soul engineers came from the Sun Moon Empire, and they hadn't been here for long. The Sun Moon Empire only had a handful of Class 9 Soul Engineers after so many years. Although a Class 9 Soul Engineer was equivalent to a titled Douluo, the difference was huge. This meant that the Sun Moon Empire had quite a few titled Douluo, although they were fewer than the Federation. However, there were very few titled Douluo who could become Class 9 Soul Engineers. This was because a Class 9 Soul Engineer meant that he or she could create and use Class 9 Soul tools. Simply put, a titled Douluo might not necessarily be a Class 9 Soul Engineer, but a Class 9 Soul Engineer was definitely a titled Dalu. The Federation had absorbed the Soul Engineer system for so many years, but not a single Class 9 Soul Engineer had been born. Douluo was the first to do so. Shrek Academy's teacher Fan Yu was also a Class 8 Soul Engineer. The Soul Tool Department's Vice Dean Qian Duo was also a Class 8 Soul Engineer. Dean Xian Lin was also a Class 8 Soul Engineer. It wasn't hard to imagine how difficult it was to become a Class 9 Soul Engineer. The continent's strongest talent in the past 1,000 years was even more impressive. Zhang Lishuan wasn't even 24 years old, but she was already a soul sage. She was known as the Academy's most talented soul engineer in the past 1,000 years. One was the Shrek Academy while the other was the continent. How big was the difference between them? End of chapter. Chapter 1189. There's actually such a person. Wang Feng thought for a moment. Isn't this too awesome? Isn't this who I was back then? Wang Feng pondered. A peerless figure who led an era. Setting aside the fact that they were from different eras, this Douluo was far more powerful than Bai Dong had been back in the day. Speaking of which, Wang Feng suddenly missed Bibidon. He wondered how they had been in the God Realm for the past few decades. Cultivation in the God Realm was very fast. Their abilities should have reached a certain level by now, right? Douluo Yuan Hong's eyes were filled with respect. It was a kind of respect that came from faith. The Douluo's status must have been very high to be able to make a titled Douluo look at him like that. It seems like I really haven't paid attention to these things, Wang Fengxin thought to himself. He didn't know much about them at all. For example, Wang Feng didn't know much about the 12 Douluo Heavenly Kings. Or rather, he wasn't very interested in them. Wang Feng didn't expect to hear such words before he left. The summit tournament, the Douluo. The Douluo is indeed a peerless figure. Mu In and the rest walked over slowly. He's at the peak of an era. Naturally, he's not bad. However, I think you're also at the peak of another era. I wish you a smooth return from the extreme north. Mu In and the rest looked at Wang Feng with smiles. You're welcome. Wang Feng smiled. I'll take my leave first. We'll meet again if fate wills it. After that, he took a look at the rest before summoning Long Xie. He stood on Long Xie's back and slowly rose into the sky. Wang Feng retracted his thoughts as he looked at the figure that was gradually becoming smaller and smaller. His journey to the Shrek Academy had come to an end here. You've created the path of soul contract masters. You've also created a new path for cultivation. I'll call you Teacher Wang then. Yuan Hong smiled and said, the extreme north is tens of thousands of miles away. Why don't you take a flying-type soul tool? It'll save your energy. He also had a pair of flying-type soul tools on his back. They were light green and there were lines flowing on them. They looked very mysterious. They were indeed very fast. It's fine. Flying is also a form of training. Wang Feng patted Long Xie. He hasn't exercised much these days. Flying tens of thousands of miles is a good exercise for him. Long Xie was speechless. Due to the collision of two continents and the changes of the continents, the current territory of the continent was much larger than it was 10,000 years ago. Therefore, most people would use flying-type soul tools to travel to the extreme north. This was the most efficient way to conserve soul power. Yuan Hong glanced at Long Xie. How long can a 10,000-year soul beast fly? Several days later, Yuan Hong looked at his overloaded flying-type soul tool before looking at Long Xie, who was taking care of his scales elegantly. His mind was filled with question marks. Did this 10,000-year soul beast really fly for at least 7 days without rest? Even flying-type soul tools couldn't fly for such a long time. How did this soul beast do it? There were many questions in his heart, but Yuan Hong did not intend to ask too many questions. Furthermore, Qilin Lord Bingmu was also flying over. Because Wang Feng hadn't absorbed Qilin Lord Bingmu's soul ring, Qilin Lord Bingmu had been outside this entire time. In comparison, Lin Lord Bingmu flew faster than Long Xie. However, Qilin Lord Bingmu's size wasn't suitable for carrying people. In 7 days, the two of them flew at full speed from the Shrek Academy to a city at the northern border of the Federation. There are about 5 of us on this trip. We are all from the inspection department. Our goal is only to enter the inner circle and find information about the 3 Douluo heavenly kings. Apart from that, we won't clash with evil soul beasts, Yuan Hong explained. There are 5 soul masters. One of them is mainly a recovery-type soul master, while the other 4 are agility-type soul masters. Oh yes, I would like to ask Teacher Wang to hand over his life soul contracts to the inspection department. If possible, I hope that you can make these 5 soul masters soul contract masters. Even if it's just 1 soul contract master, it's fine. I don't need to help with that. Wang Feng smiled. Everyone can become a soul contract master. There are still some differences, right? Yuan Hong asked. Wang Feng didn't answer. It was all the same. Yuan Hong thought that he should be the one to choose a soul contract beast. If there's a chance. Wang Feng nodded. This wasn't a difficult thing to do. Speaking of which, the inspection department's mission is very difficult. I don't know if we can succeed. Yuan Hong sighed. He glanced at Wang Feng and had an idea. Along the way, he didn't ask why Wang Feng wanted to come to the extreme north. However, he thought that it should be something important. But what important thing could make Wang Feng want to go to the extreme north, an extremely dangerous place? Wang Feng didn't answer. Instead, he looked at the city and the white world in the distance. The extreme north, a place that used to be very familiar to him, was dyed with a lot of black in the white world. This city was an important city at the back of the Federation. It was also an ancient city, Ice Crystal City. Coincidentally, this city was the first city the evil soul masters faced when they controlled the soul beasts in the extreme north to invade the continent. That battle also broke out outside this city. After 10,000 years, this ancient city had changed a lot. However, Wang Feng could feel that the soul masters in this city were very cold and solemn, perhaps because of the geography. There were soldiers wearing special armor patrolling back and forth at the city gate. There were also many soldiers coming back from the outside in the air. The major city gates were also heavily guarded. There were many high-level soul masters among them. Let me introduce you to these 5 deacons later. Yuan Hong brought Wang Feng to a special building. It wasn't very tall, but it looked like it was selling antique. Jade Spirit Pavilion. This place is our inspection department's northern branch. It's usually only used to deal with special matters. Under normal circumstances, it's just a shop selling antique. Only the Ice Crystal City's City Lord and Vice City Lord know about this place. Yuan Hong pushed open the door and walked in. He heard a voice. Old Yuan, you're finally here. If you didn't come, the few of us would have to act alone. Who is this? The voice sounded a little helpless and relieved. The room was antique. There were many antiques placed on the cabinets around, and they seemed to be quite old. There were a few people standing around a wooden table in the distance. There was even a special world map soul tool placed there. A rough map of the extreme north was drawn on it, and there were also several key points that were flashing with light. This kind of world map soul tool was one of the more advanced soul tools. Zhu Zi had given Wang Feng a world map of the continent back then. The world map soul tool that these people were using was even more detailed. It was a special world map soul tool that belonged to the extreme north. There were a few different colored light spots on it, and there was a rough outline of the ice mountains in the forest outside. End of chapter. Chapter 1190. There were a total of 5 people, 3 males and 1 female. They were young and seemed to be around 30 to 50 years old. However, they were all soul sages. One of the males was even a titled Dalu. It was also a voice that spoke. The headquarters sent me to the Shrek Academy to settle some things. Yuan Hong walked over and smiled as he said, Elder Jing, there might be one more person on this trip. Is it this young man beside you? Jing Yang looked at Wang Feng, and a look of surprise flashed across his eyes. He's quite talented. He was obviously referring to Wang Feng's appearance. Jing Yang looked about the same age as Yuan Hong. He was definitely above 60 years old. His abilities were probably around rank 91. If he was at rank 60, he would be at rank 91. Such talent was outstanding even among soul masters. For example, Zhang Lishuan was probably a titled Douluo before she was 40 years old. She was considered a genius. After rank 90, the difficulty of attaining soul power would increase tremendously. Actually, those who could enter the inspection department naturally couldn't be ordinary soul masters. That's right. Yuan Hong nodded and introduced. He's called Wang Feng. He's a soul charmer. He's also the creator of soul charmers. All of you should know that I'm going to the Shrek Academy to investigate soul charmers. I can't tell you the details in such a short time. I'll tell you when I'm free. Let's prepare first. We'll set off tomorrow. Wang Feng? Isn't that the name of the Federation's white-clothed popediff? At this moment the lady who looked around 30 years old exclaimed, although this name isn't rare, I don't think there's anyone with this name now, right? It's rare. Wang Feng smiled. The lady looked at Wang Feng and blushed a little. She quickly retracted her gaze and calmed herself down. Soul charmers. Deacon Yuan, you believe in them too? A long-haired man walked out and was a little surprised. I remember that Beihe Academy reported that soul charmers are related to evil soul masters. You believe the news from Beihe Academy? Jing Yang glanced at the long-haired man. You've been in the inspection department for 3 years. Little he, you haven't improved much. These academies are competing with each other. Most of the news that they report is subjective. There's no truth to it. How can we believe that? Otherwise, what do you want us to do? He scratched his head and hurriedly said, Deacon Zheng, I was wrong. Soul contractor, I think it's a cultivation method that uses soul beasts as partners, right? Another man with a buzz cut walked out and said thoughtfully, Since Deacon Yuan has brought the founder of the soul renters here, I presume you've already investigated the matter? Is it true? The man with the buzz cut had done his homework well. The internal information of the inspection department was universal. Obviously, they also knew about this matter. Really? Yuan Hong nodded slightly and said in a respectful tone, Speaking of which, I invited Master Wang here because I wanted to let the few of you see if you have the chance to become a soul renderer. Oh yes, I have a record of the light image soul tool here. If you have any questions, you can take a look at this record. As for the rest, I won't waste my breath. After he finished speaking, Yuan Hong turned to Wang Feng and said, Let me introduce you to Jing Yang. He's a deacon like me, and he's also in charge of this trip. He's a rank 91 agility type titled Dalu. The one with long hair, a rank 72 agility type soul sage. The one with the buzz cut, Lin Gang, a rank 71 soul sage. And this one, Jiang Yun, a rank 63 healing type soul emperor. And Lin Gang were both above 40 years old. Jiang Yun was slightly younger, around 30 years old. There was also a bespectacled man who was reading a thick book at this moment. He looked slightly younger than Jiang Yun, around 30 years old. Wang Feng took a look. The book was called The Chronicles of the Extreme North. I'm Hua Linghai. He stood up and pushed his glasses up. Actually, I'm very interested in becoming a soul contractor. I wanted to go with Deacon Yuan, but it's a pity that I was sent here to investigate first. A rank 80 control type soul Douluo. This Hua Linghai's talent was not bad. Let's end the introduction here. Old Zheng, this is the light image soul tool. I'll bring him and gather at the North Gate tomorrow. I've discussed with the mayor of Ice Spirit City. They'll send a group of elite soldiers to escort us into the forest outside the extreme north. Yuan Hong passed the soul tool to Xingyang and walked out with Wang Feng. Linghai, how strong is Wang Feng? After Yuan Hong and Wang Feng walked out, Xingyang asked. Hua Linghai's golden eyes flashed. He answered, very low. How low? He Hai was curious. Soul King? Or Soul Ancestor? Even lower. Hua Linghai shook his head. He's a rank 26 Soul Master. He Hai. Everyone else. So low. Then he might not be able to keep up with our speed? Jiang Yun thought for a moment. Is there something special about a soul contractor? No matter how special it is, it's impossible to surpass so many ranks, right? He Hai shook his head. It's not impossible. Back then, the Shi Douluo was able to surpass 40 ranks and defeat a titled Douluo as a Soul King. Lin Gang touched his buzz cut. Maybe he's another Shi Douluo? Old Lin, do you believe that? He Hai chuckled. Lin Gang thought for a moment and nodded. The Shi Douluo said that everything is possible. She doesn't think she's the strongest. Why not? He Hai. Elder Jing, let's take a look at this soul tool first. I'm interested in a soul contractor. Maybe he'll surprise us. Hua Linghai looked at the soul tool in Elder Jing's hand. Xingyang pondered for a moment and nodded. Then, they surrounded the soul tool and slowly turned it on, the next day. At the city gate. It's going to be dangerous. Teacher Wang, you don't have to worry about Elder Jing and the others. If anything happens, you should focus on protecting yourself. Yuan Hong looked at the vast expanse of white snow outside the grand door, and said in a heavy tone. Aren't you afraid that your colleagues will be disappointed by your words? Wang Feng laughed a few times. That's not it. It's just that, in terms of importance, you're much more important than the 5 of them. Yuan Hong didn't mince his words. Furthermore, they have their own missions. I don't want you to get involved. When we enter the inner circle of the extreme north, the danger level will increase exponentially. If you have something else to do, you can leave on your own. Wang Feng nodded slightly. The inspection department was very clear about their differences. At this moment, the 5 members of the inspection department, led by Xingyang, rushed over from afar with red eyes. End of chapter. Chapter 1191. Red Eyes. Yuan Hong was a little surprised. What's wrong with you guys? Why are your eyes so red? Old Jing, you're already an old deacon of our inspection department. You're going to carry out a mission today. Don't tell me you secretly went to do it last night? Let me tell you, it's illegal to go whoring now. As a member of the Federation's inspection department, it's unacceptable for you to knowingly break the law. Get lost. Xingyang walked over and scolded. Who went whoring? You're disrespectful. The 2 of them had a good relationship, Wang Fengxin said. Yuan Hong smiled. Deacon Yuan, we've seen the light image soul tool. We've seen it inside and out more than 5 times. Hua Linghai's eyes were red and his hair was messy. He was wearing the special black windbreaker of the inspection department. However, he seemed to be in good spirit. It was as if he had taken stimulant. Deacon Yuan, is that true? He Hai's tone was a little agitated and excited. Is everything inside true? Is a soul contract master really that powerful? 5 times. Actually, they were completely shocked when they saw it for the first time. The next few times were to confirm it, and they felt like they were addicted to it. The development of the light image soul tool wasn't very good. The clarity wasn't high, but the sound was still retained. Therefore, they could hear it very clearly. Logically speaking, if this light image soul tool was given to them by someone else, they would probably think that it was a cult. How could there be such an awesome thing? It must be fake. The 3 core laws were terrifying just thinking about it. Was it possible for a human to create it? But if it was given by Yuan Hong, it was different. And the location was indeed in Shrek Academy. There was no way they would make a mistake. Therefore, even if they wanted to doubt it, they had no reason to. This light image soul tool only lasts for 3 to 4 hours. Don't tell me you guys have been watching it the whole time? Yuan Hong looked at them and said in surprise, "If it wasn't true, I wouldn't have brought Teacher Wang here." "You guys, really? You can call him Teacher Wang." Wang Feng looked at them and thought to himself, "It seems like the effect of that lesson is still there." Fortunately, there was a light image soul tool that could record it. It made it easier to spread the information. Otherwise, it wouldn't be so easy. In a few thousand years, Wang Feng suspected that there would be communication devices similar to mobile phones. The concept of a soul contractor can be said to be epoch-making, but to be able to create a life soul contract is something I never expected. Jing Yang stared at Wang Feng for a while. How was a rank 26 soul master able to create such a special law as a life contract? He couldn't figure it out no matter how hard he tried. If the Shi Douluo was the one who had created this thing, then it was understandable. But the other party, let's go first, Wang Feng said. Let's talk on the way. Everyone nodded. Beside the city gate, there was a group of soldiers wearing ice-silver armor who had been waiting for a long time. These soldiers were the garrison of Ice Crystal City. They were also the army responsible for escorting them to the outskirts of the forest in the extreme north. Although they were called armor, Wang Feng felt that these armors were extremely light. They were more like a special type of protective equipment. Furthermore, there were simple soul tools installed inside, which allowed these armors to withstand attacks that were far beyond their own rank. The garrison at the back of the border had always been the most elite soldiers of the Federation. The soldiers in front of him were all above rank 50, and the captain was even above rank 60. To be able to reach such a standard was already very exaggerated. One had to know that this was not considered an ace army. It was considered an elite army among ordinary soldiers. The Federation only had an army of a few hundred people. They were formed by high-level soul masters and represented the strongest army on the continent. They were the ace of the aces. Furthermore, their martial souls had similarities. They weren't mixed martial souls. The so-called similarities referred to a certain degree of connection. For example, they were all the same type of beast martial soul. It was very powerful. After walking out of the city gate, a gust of cold air rushed towards them. It was different from inside the city. The temperature here was very low, a few dozen degrees below zero. Because of the city walls, the temperature inside the city was slightly higher, around -20 degrees below zero. Outside, it was 60 to 70 degrees below zero. With the physique of a low-level soul master, it was very difficult to survive in such an environment. Even mid-level soul masters would be in trouble if they stayed in such a place for a long time. However, with the appearance of soul tools, there were many soul tools that could resist the cold, which greatly reduced the difficulty of surviving in the extreme north. Conserve soul power. For example, the armor on this 50-man army had the ability to resist the cold. Even if they entered the extreme north, they could still fight. After walking a few dozen miles out of the city, the group was attacked by evil soul beasts. This was obviously not a good situation. After about half a day, they encountered a second wave of evil soul beasts. Fortunately, this army was well trained and dealt with them. With the help of this army, the group traveled very quickly. By noon, they had already reached the outer forest of the extreme north. After that, the army turned around and returned. Xingyang led the group into the outer forest. "Oh right, didn't Deacon Yuan say that he found an Isya sect disciple and that there was a secret passage that led directly to the inner circle?" At this moment Wang Feng suddenly asked. There was a long distance between the outer forest and the inner circle. There were many evil soul beasts in the outer circle. If they went in like this, it was very likely that they would attract the attention of the creatures from the dark devil realm that were born from eggs. It would be very troublesome and dangerous to deal with. Isya sect disciples usually don't enter human cities. They only live in the extreme north. Zheng Yang explained, he should be nearby. He's in charge of receiving us. Linghai, come here. Hua Linghai walked out and nodded slightly. Immediately, he shouted and 8 soul rings lit up on his body. 3 purple and 5 black soul rings. At the same time, a pair of special black-rimmed glasses appeared on his eyes. My martial soul is glasses. And it's made of frost jade. Hua Linghai said. Glasses martial soul. Wang Feng was rather curious. Glasses was a tool martial soul that didn't have any offensive or defensive abilities. But in terms of investigation and detection, it was absolute and had many extraordinary abilities. It was a powerful team-type martial soul. 6th soul skill. Constant temperature tracking. Hua Linghai's eyes suddenly emitted an intense light. With him as the center, the temperature quickly began to change. Streams of cold air passed through his body and blew into the endless distance. Constant temperature tracking was able to sense the surrounding situation through the changes in the surrounding temperature. Nothing could be hidden from him. It was a bit like a thermal camera, but this was a bit stronger and could let Hua Linghai see more details. For example, some soul beasts had a special shielding ability that could block spiritual power perception. But they were helpless against this kind of physical perception. This was because all life had a temperature. End of chapter. You're tuning in to the Phoenix Nights YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.